Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Graham. I am your host for the Game Club, and today I am joined by George,
Hey guys, excited to talk about this one.
Dallin,
Hey,
Gareth,
Hi there.
and Jake.
hello, investigation freaks.
Oh, freak. So, as I said, I'm your host, Graham. Today, or rather this month, we played Paradise Killer. So, Jake, you were the one who picked this game, so it's only
Mm-hmm.
appropriate that you kind of take us through your thoughts, your initial thoughts and reasons, I guess, for picking it, or whatever you'd like to start with. So, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, Return of the Obra Dinn, our first episode of the Game Club Monthly, was kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting to like that game as much as I did, and so I was having a hard time picking my game. It was between two completely different types of games. It was like an action game and some 2D platformer probably. And I was just scrolling through games that met the criteria, and I came across Paradise Killer, and it was a little bit longer for the hours, but something about the trailer just immediately caught me as like, I have no idea what's going on in this, but because we just played a type of mystery game, I was like, I really want to find out. So I just wanted to roll from one mystery right to the other, and I think it was a good choice being in this mindset right now.
Nice. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start off with some first impressions as we first got into the game, initial thoughts. Anybody want to start?
Sure, I can
Sure.
kick us off with that. First off, I know we're gonna talk more in depth about the vibe and aesthetic of the game, but
Yeah.
just that was the first thing, like right from the title screen and the song that kind of kicks off, kind of a groovy, kind of jazzy song. I immediately thought to myself, okay, I at least I know I like the art style and the music that they've picked for this game, and just throughout it, it's got a very kind of it's retro but futuristic with some kind of Egyptian gods mythology stuff, and I absolutely love the way they did people's names. It was the main character's name was Lady Love Dies, and then there was like Crimson or what's it?
Crimson
Uh,
Acid.
yeah,
Crimson
Crimson
Acid.
Yeah.
Acid and Daybreak and I don't know, it's just
Sammy
these kind of like
Daybreak. Yeah.
odd, yeah, all these odd sounding names, which is combining two different words. I thought that was really cool, and I actually looked up what the genre. Not necessarily. It turns out it's not even a genre of music, but it includes just a general aesthetic. But I like the music so much that I was like, what kind of music is this? Because it's not just straight up jazz. And I found out if what I found on Google is correct, that it's a genre called vaporwave.
Oh,
Yeah, vaporwave.
No,
vaporware.
I was gonna talk about that. It's one of my favorite genres. So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is that correct,
So
Dylan?
yeah, I forgot to say
Synth.
that synthwave, chill
Synthwave,
wave,
vaporwave.
vapor. Vaporwave and vapor chill is the aesthetic that drew me to it. I'm not super into it, but that was one of the things watching the trailer. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, vaporwave is this weird. I don't even know how to explain it. It kind of goes all over the place, but you can tell by it's that very like paradise, like the back of a Fiji bottle, is what
Yes.
I
Yeah.
you see that all the time in like vaporwave aesthetics or whatever. So it's like this intended paradise, and I think that's kind of where this game was going with that. Is like, here's this paradise that is perfect, and they took all the aesthetic things from that kind of. It's a multi-genre, like it's a multimedia
Yeah,
thing.
there's like some
Vaporwave,
cyberpunk kind of sprinkled in into the
yeah.
aesthetic as well.
There's like artwork and music and like a whole probably a lifestyle for some people somewhere
I'm
for,
sure.
of this type of thing. But yeah, that was one of the things that drew me to it, seeing it.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Dallin. You wanted to say something about the vaporware stuff. Did you want to say that now, or do you want to focus on like,
I can mention it briefly. We're still doing obviously initial impressions, right?
right?
So yeah, I could obviously, like George said, I'll dig deeper into it. But from the last game, I was approaching maybe too cautious concerning the environment for this next game. But yeah, as soon as the screen turned on, I was hit with like a nostalgia escape, like the chill wave. I often, there's like only a few genres I listen to almost like on a daily basis, and one of them is synth vapor chill wave type stuff. I just love the absence of lyrics sometimes, and it just teleports you into a different world. So when it says Paradise Killer and like you're on an island of paradise, I felt like it was almost a visual of sometimes how you feel when listening to this type of music. So I really liked that. Um, but yeah, initially, again, so I was really cautious, but just the colors, how vibrant. It's like, okay, similar to our last game, but first you just look at it and it's like completely different. It hits you with a burst of color.
Yeah.
And but yeah, like I said, I can get more into some other things, but I approached the game too cautiously, and I'll tell you some of the hard falls for later. But it won me over right away. I loved it.
Nice.
Just the start off was really good.
Gareth, thoughts?
Yeah, it was certainly sensory overload from the start. It's definitely coming from Obra Dinn. The black
Yeah.
and white to just like boom colors in your
Yeah,
face.
seriously, what a change.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked how it introduces you to the game, because you start off in this tiny cramped room and you don't really know what anything is. But it's pretty obviously like you go up and interact with things, and sure enough, it introduces you to like all the mechanics, and then you literally jump off a platform. And
Dang, I was
Yeah.
gonna mention when that happened, I almost had like a heart attack. Like as
"Eh."
soon as I fell and then the music started, I'm just like,
Mhm.
Yeah,
wow.
For
And
a
then-
first
and I
impression, the
looked-
title card is
Yeah,
just,
it was pretty great.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's like
You're
one of the
just
best
falling.
I've ever seen. I guess, yeah.
It was
That-
it's beautiful.
and
Just
the-
seeing the whole island, and then like as soon as you're about to hit the ground, I actually went through it a second time. The beginning part you guys heard yesterday, but like I looked down right at the last second. And it's just I just imagine what,
Well,
but
No, and
it's just
it was really cool because they also I don't
breathtaking.
know. Yeah, I don't know if like the judge tells you that they turned gravity off or like that gravity won't
Yes.
affect you or something like that.
I
Fall
think it was
damage.
I think he just kind of alluded to the fact that when you fall, you just don't get hurt.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, and
It was
that's,
part of the Paradise Island. I thought it was part of the island,
Mhm.
right?
yes,
Right, yeah. It was
and,
just like an aspect of the island, yeah.
and that
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like not only like starting in the small area and everything too, but then as soon as they tell you that, I was like, okay, I'm in for something different here. Like,
Right.
oh, you don't have to worry about gravity. It's not gonna hurt you. We took care of that. I was like, oh, okay, what what is
How
this world
nice.
that I'm
What is
jumping
this?
into?
Yeah, as if you didn't
Yeah.
get that from just jumping off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Or did they,
yeah,
oh,
so-
they say
It was right
that?
before.
They
It's
say
right as you get the
before, yeah.
laptop.
I can't
As you get your
remember.
computer. Yeah, that part was so interesting because I was really unsettling, like seeing like skulls in the beginning too, but they're pretty.
They're-
So I'm like, I
they're
feel
pretty,
conflicted
yeah.
about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole island aesthetic is really bizarre. The whole syndicate's like, we'll talk about it more, sure, but like
Yeah.
what the syndicate is and what their beliefs basically is, it's pretty weird.
It's pretty
Yeah.
weird.
And it gets weirder as you play longer
It
too.
does,
Yeah, seriously.
But the fall really reminded me of Myst, just
Ah.
because it looks like an island. I mean, Myst is an island. This is an island. You're falling from above, which, if I remember right, in the beginning of Myst is you above the island, and as you're falling down, you can clearly see like the different areas, which is exactly how
Oh,
Myst
okay.
was.
That's also what
Um,
I thought of actually.
It's it's the exact thing I thought of as I was falling down at the island. Then you land, and you're like, oh, I'm talking to people. And this is totally different. But
You
Yeah.
can't talk to people in Mist, what the heck?
no.
That's funny. Yeah, I also thought it was similar to Myst in that way of like going around an island to different locations. I think for me, the beginning was definitely the strongest part of the experience for me. I think I really liked seeing the island. That's probably the thing I liked the most about the game was the island itself, because especially falling down, like it's just there's all these like key things. There's like this ring that's like rotating around this crystal, and then there's this something happening over here, and there's like a tall spire over here, and I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait to go around this island and like see what is all in these different locations and like check it out.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it was definitely a good start, I think.
Yeah. And it definitely does a great job at teasing you to start kind of exploring right away.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I guess it goes without saying, but we're gonna basically spoil the whole game. But for those of
Yeah.
you who haven't played,
Stop.
yeah, exactly.
Watch
But
out.
you know, it's kind of an open world game. You could just right from the get go, you can choose where you want to go, um, and it does a great job at kind of teasing you and encouraging you just intrinsically by just showing you all this. So you kind of want to get started in exploring. The actual exploration part, I have some qualms with, and we can talk about that later if we want to get into mechanic stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, the actual
Jake, did you give like a first impressions within like the intro that you gave, or do you have some more first impressions you want to give?
I mean, I was just really excited. As soon as I booted it up, I was like, okay, well, the trailer was basically just sold me. And as soon as I got inside and like when you've talked to Shinji immediately as the little blue demon guy as you're going out your door, and he says some stuff and then disappears, and I was just like, yeah, this is what I was looking for. This is rad. And then
Nice.
the title card, of course, falling down and the music starting. Yeah, I was just really happy. I was just very like first impressions was just super excited to explore. Like
Yeah,
I
same.
didn't really care at that point if the game was actually mechanically going to be good. I just wanted to once I realized that I was falling down and this is the island and the stuff I was going to be exploring, because at first I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm going to fall like down this, then it's going to like teleport me somewhere else. And then realizing that, oh no, this is the game world. I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
I just want to see what's here. So
yeah, it was really
was
cool.
very excited.
All right. Well, so let's move on to our first section is going to be gameplay, design, mechanics, stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and start this section off. So this is going to be, I don't know if other people are going to have the same opinion, but and I hope no one's going to be too upset about what I'm about to say. I didn't particularly enjoy playing this game. I thought the beginning was really strong.
Dallin takes off his headphones and storms out the room.
I think the beginning was really strong.
I understand.
And I was really interested, but I didn't really. It was from that point on for me, it was like downhill. I enjoyed certain aspects here and there, but I think overall the moment-to-moment gameplay didn't really do it for me. I didn't think that the story was compelling. I didn't like any of the characters, except for maybe Lydia. I didn't really like, a lot of the aspects of the game, and especially when it came to like gameplay. I think they took something that should have been solving a mystery, and there was some like solving mystery parts, but I felt like it boiled down too much to like a collectathon with really terrible controls. So I like at the beginning was like really excited to explore, but then I was like, as I'm exploring and like I'm realizing I have to collect like an insane amount of stuff, and like realizing that the controls are, especially like the air momentum, I'm sure you guys have noticed. Holy
Oh,
frick.
I'll tell you what happened when we talk about when we first started playing. It was
Yeah,
horrible.
so it was all downhill from there for me. So that's kind of my impressions of the gameplay overall and like the mechanics. I really wasn't a big fan, and it was a big detracting point for me. So
As far as the controls, I do have to agree with you. The air momentum thing was the thing that annoyed me the most. So first off, in the
What do you
game,
mean by that exactly?
Well, I
So-
think I
Wherever
think
you jump,
would have
you
been
land. You
amazing
can't control.
if you could move forward in the air when you jumped. That was a
yes,
big
that's
problem.
part
It was
of
like
it.
because you end up in such like weird places like trying to explore and gather things. Yeah, there was the problem where you would be up against something and you needed to jump over it, but you couldn't. You had to get forward momentum before you were
Yeah.
in the
okay.
air.
yeah,
But that later is nullified kind of a little bit by the dash.
right,
Yeah.
Yes,
a
but
little
at
But
the
bit.
same
initially,
time,
But initially, for the majority of the game, yeah, I was having this problem where I was like in these precarious areas and couldn't
You could get
jump
out.
Yeah, like
quite
if you were
like I wanted to.
if you were against something, right, and you jumped, you actually do have a tiny little bit of air momentum. It's so tiny. So like just like being against something and then jumping up, you like can barely move yourself forward, but it's so freaking slow. It like slows down
Like
the
two
game like
pixels.
like you've hit a brick wall. It felt so awful. And then the other thing was when you would jump with your momentum, you had no like you were always going in that one direction.
Committed.
Yeah, you were committed to
Yeah.
that direction. It didn't
And
feel good.
to be honest, I personally wasn't expecting some sort of like Mario level, like air
Right.
jumping and all that stuff. But one of the things also that annoyed me the most was with your dash, like if you're running forward and you do a jump, like off a building, let's say, and then you do a double jump, you keep moving forward, and you're supposed to have some control with your dash that you can do once you've actually jumped. But like, let's say I jumped forward and then I turned to the left and I dashed to the left. I
But
would
you're still moving. You're moving both
But
directions.
Yeah,
still,
your momentum
I
goes
wouldn't even.
this way,
Yeah, I
and then
would
your
still
dash
keep
just
moving.
shifts you as so you like go
Exactly.
shift
Yep.
and then keep going that way. It's like
It would just
like
be a shift.
drifting.
You wouldn't.
It's like
Yeah, it
drifting in
wouldn't
there.
actually
That
change
wasn't really a
momentum at all.
problem for me.
And
But
No,
Yeah.
I got used to it.
I got annoyed by it a lot actually.
I got used to it eventually, but it was always like kind of obnoxious to deal with. Like you figure out
Yeah,
how to
I
like
could-
utilize it, but it's I wouldn't say it was very good.
Yeah,
So
and for a game
I
that requires you
found-
to go so many places, it can get kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I found the air dash fairly early on, and so I
Mhm.
played most of the game with it before even the double jump, and that I don't know. I figured out how to use it quickly, and then understood what it did, and so I don't know. It didn't bother me that much. I thought it was actually quite handy because you could do these funny jumps and then dash over, and you'd be there.
wait, so the
I didn't have
so
that much of a trouble with it.
so there's a question that I have real quick. So like I said yesterday, I played a little bit again a second time, and I'll explain why. And then I realized how much I'd have to be into the game to actually get to what was my goal. I couldn't find on the internet. Anyway, so depending on where you unlock, it takes the currency, which is the blood crystals, and the unlocks for mobility is dependent upon the hot spring that you go to. Because I thought that it was just whatever was the first one you went to. Because I thought I went to a different one the second time I played, and I got double jumped the first time again.
No, because I got the dash first as well.
Same. I got the dash first. I didn't get double jump.
yeah, I got double
That's what's-
jumped right away. It's
Okay.
literally like in the very first area that you go to.
Oh really?
Then this is
But
where
I
I
went the
should
other
say
way.
something.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
area they want you to go to.
Okay, Dallin, it sounds
So-
like you have something to say about what happened through your playthrough. I'm very
Yes.
curious to hear
Let
what
us-
happened.
Let us hear
Right
it.
as we begin. Well, first off, when you first meet the people, I was kind of creeped out at first. I'm like, what are these cardboard people, flat people? Like, I like would walk around them and they'd just be like,
It's like a
Oh,
3D,
yeah.
2D thing.
yeah, I got used to it and I liked it. I actually noticed this is something because you end up learning that these characters, we'll talk more later, they're like immortal. Because right in the beginning, it says that you're like, you've been in jail. I took a lot of notes this time. You've been in jail for over 3 million days. And I'm like, okay.
So you're not
like, so you
actually
learn about
in jail,
immortals.
though. You're exiled.
Yeah, I know.
Exiled.
The main character has been
Exiled.
exiled. Yeah.
Exiled, yeah. But the characters, I think they're taller than normal as well. Did anybody notice that? The doors are shorter by almost all of the immortal people. Anyway, right as we talked to the judge, yeah, the door beams are like, I feel like you'd hit your head every time. So, especially with your main character. But right after you talk to the judge and you go out, I saw on the side, you talk to the demon guy. He's like, all right, laters. And then I tested more jumping. And I'm like, oh, this feels really weird. Well, as soon as you go out, you go down off to the right and you actually start the game. I did not see the actual murder of the game until after 4 hours into the game because the momentum was so bad that I fell off the cliff. I fell off the judge area and I landed in these woods and it was nighttime by this point. And I'm like, okay. So I
Yeah.
had no idea. I'm like, oh, this is
So you
fun.
got
I
lost
literally
immediately?
I got
That's
lost
amazing.
immediately. And then I found
That's
a little
cool.
the flashlight. So I had the flashlight and then I fall in the sewer. And I'm just like, where am I? I don't know what's going on.
This
So then
is-
I was like,
Cool.
Yeah, so I fell in the sewer area, and eventually I was walking, and the first person I talked to was Crimson Acid, which is on the other side of the like island. She'd be like one of the later people I think to talk to almost. I don't know,
She was the
but
first one I talked to
Yeah,
as
it all
well.
depends
was she?
on where you decide
Yeah,
to go.
and it depends. But yeah, I was lost, and I loved like exploring, and I'm like, my first video game syndrome was going on my good old Banjo Kazooie. I was just like, I don't care that this is like Obra Dinn. I'm collecting everything, and I just like collected everything, and I felt so good, and it felt like VR chat. I kind of said earlier, like it felt like I could just jump and move. The mobility was like VR chat, and I was just like, this is whatever. I did not get accessibility to double jump or dash until almost I think 8 hours into the game
Oof.
because I hung
What?
on to my crystals.
I knew
'Cause
that
I'm
was
like,
going to
I didn't
happen
get-
too. I was kind of mad that Gareth told you about it because I wanted to hear you get to the
How
all the way to
long?
the end without the
I
double
was
jump.
8 or 9
Jeez.
hours in, and I eventually I was like, I got to hold all these crystals. Like I don't know when I need something. You talk to Crimson Dawn. You
Potion
talk to
syndrome.
Crimson
Crimson
Acid.
Acid.
I'll
Crimson
use
Acid.
these eventually.
Yeah, like you have to
Yeah.
pay her. I'm like, okay, I'm going to save these, and I ended up having to backtrack the entire island for the sodas and for the monuments where fire pops out and you squirt blood. Holy smokes! How's the main character alive still? It's like you're peeing
It's
blood.
your
I had to
blood
look away.
crystal.
It's the blood
It's not
I know,
crystal.
but
actually her
I
blood.
thought it was blood coming out. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like there's being a lot of blood. Anyway, so I
That's why
didn't
she's
experience
Lady
the
Love
mobility.
Dies.
Yeah, she's
She
dying.
pees only blood.
Yeah,
She
I had to
doesn't
look
see a
away, but-
doctor.
She does see one doctor.
She died from
But
Larry's
no, so
disease,
I
but they
didn't-
kept her alive.
So concerning the mobility, that's why at the beginning I was like, well, crap, because I didn't do dash and like the senses stuff until like 7-8 hours into the game. I had to I focused on jumping on a plant, jumping on the edge of a tree, like a seat, and then jumping on the fence and delicately walking over a fence. Like that's how I played the game for the first 8 hours. Like it's pain, like doing that. I ended up liking it because it was like peculiar, but I ended up 100%ing the game. I ended up collecting everything, or so I thought. Anyway, enough about me.
Yeah,
I'm pretty disappointed about one thing in this game that we'll get to. It really hurts
Interesting
my feelings.
difficulties.
But yeah, I fell
Yeah.
off a cliff in the beginning, so I didn't like that for the mobility.
Yeah, in
That's-
the
that's-
beginning, I went up and found
You went straight up the mountain.
KHX.
I went
immediately.
up. Yeah, KHX. I found his
Yeah.
his house and explored that, and then followed the drag marks over the cliff. And was like, oh, I didn't take
Did you
damage when I
jump
fell down
down?
before. I jumped down and found his
Okay.
body.
Oh,
That was the
nice.
first thing I did. Just like, okay, I
Same.
solved that.
Wow.
He's dead.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
really?
That's what you did.
Yeah, it's
found
funny
him
that you
way
did that, 'cause
later.
That's literally the first thing I did was find him, find his
Yeah.
body, jump down, and then I explored the entire beach and
Mhm.
try to collect all the things that were there. Thankfully, you get an ability later in the game that just you meditate and
Yeah.
it tells you where things are.
Shows you. Yeah.
10
But-
hours in.
Which I absolutely
I don't know if that's thankfully, in my opinion.
Yeah, which I
Well, so-
I absolutely despise that mechanic.
So
But I was
here's the
10
thing.
hours in when I saw it, so I already collected over half of the things once I got it. So I thought it was fine because I still had the mystery of looking everywhere. I have the island memorized by this point before I even found that.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I was never able to memorize the island. The map that they give you is just a still picture and it just points you are here. There's no sort of like real way to
Yeah, it
orientate.
doesn't show you. I
which
think that's
way
all
you're
on
looking.
purpose. I think that they made everything really hard to remember
Yeah.
on purpose, so
And
that
see,
you just had to be in the moment more. I mean, I did memorize it all. By the end, I was running errands
Kind
like
of did. It's not to say
pretty
that I
fast,
was like
but
yeah, it's not to say I was like completely unaware of where things were, but so here's my problem.
everything's
with-
really connected too, though. And
Yeah.
at first you don't know
Yes.
that, but
That's
it,
true.
Yeah,
it really is.
that is
There's only
really-
like a few places that are annoying to get to without fast traveling.
Right.
But my main problem with this is I really liked the mystery aspect part of it. I did want, well, I don't know if I liked it, but at least I wanted to find out who it was. Because I don't know about you guys, but from the get-go, the character that they accuse is Henry. And it's pretty obvious that he's been framed. Like, just
Right.
Yeah.
knowing stories in general, you just know, okay, yeah, this guy's been framed. So I actually wanted to find out who did it. And there's, multiple parties involved towards the end. But so that kind of kept me going. And that was kind of something I was looking forward towards figuring out. And I actually enjoyed talking to people because I'm like, okay, it's driving me closer to this goal. The thing that I didn't like so much was the fact that it was I like open world games that focus on exploration. What I didn't like is that this was a game like that, but it didn't provide me with the proper tools to find that part enjoyable. And for me, it was the controls. They felt kind of clunky for me. And then the map and fast travel kind of stuff. Because a lot of times I would have to backtrack and talk to someone because I would talk to another character. They'd reveal something about another character. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go see what that person says. But I couldn't find them on the map. I would either have to do the control to do their augmented reality thing so you would be able to see where they are, but you're only able to see direction and distance. And in the beginning, I like the fast travel, like I know I unlocked something near them because almost every character has a fast travel location right next to them, but I just wouldn't know what it was. And there was no way to tell in game what it was. And that in the beginning,
So what do you mean? They all were labeled for exactly where they were.
I never used fast travel, not even once, except
Every
for to go
save
back to the
point
starting
said-
point.
Every save point had a description of where it was, and all
well,
those
it said
places were
yes,
places
but it didn't
you could
tell you.
recognize.
It didn't tell you like it would say like syndicate entrance or whatever, but it wouldn't like say.
It's like, well, what
oh,
NPC
witness.
was there? I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. It
Like,
wouldn't say, oh,
I had the same
witness is in
problem.
the syndicate apartments. And
Did
like,
anybody not use teleport?
I used it
Did I-
towards the end because
I
I
used
saved
it
my
towards the
blood
end.
crystals.
Yeah, I used
No,
it
I didn't use it at all.
towards the later
Yeah,
half. When I realized that I had bought most of the important things with my blood stones, I was just like, okay, I should start using these a little more.
Yeah, that was the exact same logic
Yeah.
to that.
Once I had found most things, I just needed to be talking to people to build up friendship or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Matter.
Yeah, so those were the two things that kind of detracted from my personal enjoyment was because I liked the other stuff, but it was just if they would have just honed this a little bit better, I don't know why the map had to be so confusing to use. Maybe it wasn't for you guys. Maybe it
I
was
never
just
used
me.
the map. I discovered the map in the
Oh,
Starlight
really?
computer at the end. It was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah,
there's a
I
map.
forgot there was the
Yeah,
map until
same.
about
I never-
75% of the way through, and then once
I-
I did start looking at it a little bit just to kind of think about where there might be hidden places after I'd already
Mhm.
discovered every place. But I had no problems with the map because I didn't need it. Yeah,
I used
so
the augmented thing to figure out where people were all the time, but
mhm.
I only used it for direction, and I basically explored the whole island before talking to people. And so
Yes,
by
I was
doing
gonna
that,
say
I
that's
knew
what I did
roughly
as well.
where areas were and could get there. And so I
Yeah.
just needed a rough direction to go to.
I tried to do that, and then a ghost lady popped up and was just like, "Find me," and I'm like, "Okay, like I guess I am being watched." Because when you first get there on the world, I'm like, "Dang, where's the people?" And I find a ghost, and I'm just like, "Dang!" And I talk to the ghost, and it's like, "Dang, where did all the people go? I must have just And then the main character's like, "They've all been moved or sacrificed," and I'm like, "I missed that." Like so it was so
You missed all the
interesting to
exciting stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, so that the main character told me what we were doing, and like the fact that everybody getting sacrificed are not there anymore, I was confused because I'm like, I can't tell if I'm more excited to explore this world now that people left things behind, or sad because I won't be able to interact with people. But kind of going back to kind of what George was saying before, one thing that I felt was a little like, ugh, just like ugh. I'd like talk to so many people, and I like a checkbox kind of thing, and I like hit control, looking. I'm like, all right, there's only a few exclamation marks left on people I need to talk to. And I talked to one person. Like all the people I just talked to all line up again, and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, here we go again. Like it's like, do I just talk to one person? Like I almost felt like I had to collect everything first, because then I just had to constantly go back and talk to them over again. And like the witness guy, he's like, we won't talk again until the hearing. I had to talk to him 3 more times because I had to keep going back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't like that at all. I really didn't like this backtracking of collect a bunch of things and now talk to more people and go around and talk to them all again. I just wish it was more about like
The
I don't know, like a mystery. Like, I mean, it is, and you have to follow leads and talk to people, and like you don't have to talk to them in certain orders, but like it makes more sense and you can be more efficient if you're actively thinking about and solving the things. But I really wish it was just more about like less collectibles and just going around and like collecting things, and more about just like maybe going and doing like a puzzle in a certain area that's like actually compelling. Because I guess another mechanic that we haven't talked about yet is the hacking stuff. No, it was
Oh, the pictures.
so dumb. I'm sorry.
I got so fast at it. I got
It's-
so
I
fast
got
at
fast
it
at it
throughout
too,
it.
but I was just like doing it. I'm like, what does this add to my experience exactly? Like, what exactly do I get out of this? Like, there's nothing to this. It's just here just to be. Like, they could have just taken it
hacking.
out and then just been like, you need the code, you need Nightmare and Cosmo and Pyramid just to open stuff. Fine, that's
Yeah,
fine.
and not had the lock.
And not had the locks. Like, it was completely unnecessary and added nothing. Like, it was just busy work, which I feel like a lot of the game was just like busy work of like explore. They had such that's like such a big disappointment for me was like I really loved the island. It reminded me, it pulled me back to like days where I would explore in Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. I would explore these like interesting levels that players had made, and there were like secrets, or like even I don't know if anyone's heard of the old Lego Pizza Island, Lego Island game with like
Oh,
where you are
I
pizza delivery, and there's all these
Yeah.
like interesting things around the island to go check out, and you just like are so compelled to check them all out. And even like even Mist has like all these like interesting areas, and it's just they took an approach of in those games they took the approach of like less quantity but more quality. Like each of these segments of the island are interesting and have like something compelling to interact with there. But then I felt like Paradise Killer was just like, let's just like create like pseudo interesting areas and just fill it with like quantitative nothing. And so like I finally got over to like these circling rings with this jewel, and I'm just like, I can't wait to see what this is all about and learn and understand. And it's just like it's nothing.
You can't go in it.
Yeah, you can't go
you
in
just find the
reality
demon on
clothing
top.
drive.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just the demon on top, and that's it.
yeah, exactly. I was like, really? Like, I was so excited to understand the island and learn more about the island. I feel like the island was the most interesting part of the game, but the least utilized. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
one thing
I
that
kind
I
of
think
disagree with that.
yeah, one thing I think they could have done better is with the artifacts. Like at first, I don't know about you guys, but I read every single one because I was like, oh,
I did too.
yeah, I was like,
I
oh,
read
this
like a handful, and then I was like, okay, these are just
yeah, that was
Alright.
my thing. I was like, oh, this is gonna tell me more about what happened, or
right.
like this is gonna
Yeah,
give me like
fair
more
point.
backstory about the lore and all that stuff. And then after a while, it was just like, okay, this is just filler text that has absolutely no consequence. And I personally would have enjoyed it if they gave you less artifacts, but the ones that you did manage to find were like, oh wow, this is amazing.
Right.
It's telling me like, oh, this sequence, because the islands, you know, they all have a bunch of different sequences. They've been recycled a bunch of times.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this thing that happened in island sequence number 20 or whatever is actually really key to the mystery. And I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't found this artifact and stuff. And I would have enjoyed that approach a little bit better.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I loved every single artifact and every single bit of text in this entire game. I think
Really?
that was the
Really?
point. That was the point of it for me.
World
Yeah,
building.
it's interesting
Really
hearing how
builds
everybody
world.
went a different direction and down, falling off the side and getting lost in the woods. I can see that happening because you can't like if you did just fall off and didn't save right there or something, like spin a crystal to save. I could see you just having to deal with it and like just go off. But yeah, I immediately went the way that they wanted you to go in the game and found out pretty quickly just by looking around and going to that first area that it was not the game that I thought it was going to be. Like aesthetically it was, and like vibe wise, and what do you call that? What's another word for that?
Like
The atmosphere.
Atmosphere, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good
Yeah,
word.
the atmosphere and everything was exactly like I thought it was going to be. But the game mechanics were nothing like I thought it was going to be. So I pretty quickly figured out what was going on. I was like, okay, none of the game mechanics actually matter. The only thing that matters here is the conversations and the story about the syndicate and the island. Not even the murder. Like the murder is not even the part. It's like pretty obvious within the first hour or two to me that everybody was conspiring against everybody and the syndicate, and that nobody was happy. That was kind of the point. And so I was like very uninterested in that part of the game. I was very interested in collecting all this stuff and reading everything. I think the best part of the game for me was going into that first garden area right underneath the syndicate the first syndicate housing, and
Yep.
all of the statues of all the gods are there.
Mm.
And if you go around and read those, that's actually the entire story of like the history of the game world. Basically, is like laid out in all these photos and all these statues. And so that was the best part of the game to me, is like learning, like, holy crap, like there's my favorite god, I can't remember the name. I should
Oh
have pulled
no.
it up, but
I
there's a
wonder. I
god that
wonder.
of the technology. It's like she's like almost right in front of the building, and
Yeah.
her caption is something like she just gives the technology to the humans and does not care about ethics. She's like, I don't care what they do. I don't care if they kill themselves. I don't care. And so I just found little stuff like that to be amazing, the way they put it together. So yeah, my favorite part was talking to the people, and Shinji, I think, was one of the best things. Like, he was just everywhere. Once I realized he was everywhere, I was like, this is weird. Like, there was some strange like Twilight Zone stuff when I saw two of them at the same time. I was
Yeah.
like, what is
Yeah.
going on? But
That was
quickly,
cool.
just
I remember that.
this game was like learning how to acclimate to what the heck it was doing, and if you didn't, it was definitely going to be unfun. So I just learned how to turn off all of my gut reactions to all this stuff, right down from the controls down to the fact that even though talking to people was my favorite part, they only had the like 6 or 7 voice clips that they had for each character that would, and sometimes they would match to what they were saying and sometimes they wouldn't, and it was really
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
off-putting
Yeah.
It
at first.
was.
So I learned to not pay attention to any of that, and I think because I went the right direction and got the double jump like immediately. Oh, that's another thing. I was only scared to spend my crystals for probably about 20 minutes. And then I was like, okay, this game wants you to spend the crystals on everything, is because there's so many of them. I thought it was going to
They're
be like
everywhere.
I thought it was
there's
going to
a
be
lot.
like the seeds in Breath of the Wild, where there's like a billion of them and you
Oh,
don't really need to
Korok
collect them
seeds.
all.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, obviously these things are everywhere. They have these they put the big yellow thing brackets around all the items so you can see them very clearly even from a distance. And then they make that noise when you get close, which I think they really had to do that to make it even easier to find stuff, because it just would have been horrible if they were just little things laying on the ground.
Right.
So I like
Yeah.
that they did that, even though it was visually kind of weird. But again, I think you needed to see from a distance just to even be inclined to go do that stuff. So a little bit of a breakdown there, but but yeah, because I realized that I'm just going to spend all my stuff immediately, and I kind of get what's going on. The investigation doesn't matter. Like the first time you investigate a scene, you're just like clicking on 2 things and it's just telling you. It's more like reading you. It's like reading a book, basically, is what's going on, and what you're doing doesn't really have that much effect. So I figured all that out, got the mechanics of the controls down fine, and then I just went to town. And by going to town, I mean I went to an island, and I just went around the island, and I tried not to talk to people as much as possible at first, because I realized that it would probably be better to gather as much things before you talk to them to cut down on time at the end. And I think I was right. I think that really did
Yeah, I did the
cut
same
down
as
on a lot
well.
of time.
Yeah.
I would still go back and talk to somebody if I was like close to them, or if I just really had something that. But I would bounce between like the first 3 in that first area, and get a lot of their stuff out of the way. And then I think that's what ends up being probably the best way to do it, is like go to one area, collect everything, and then as you're collecting stuff, cycle between the people that are in that area consistently. But all that aside, yeah, the story of the game was what drove me, and it wasn't really the mechanics, because yeah, there isn't anything really fun about moving in the environment. It's
Right.
more just being in the environment like before. And that's why I was saying that I love all the upgrades except for the meditation thing. I think it's dumb. I think it shouldn't have been in the game. I think they should have, and I think this is probably true. The major things that you have to find are in pretty conspicuous places where you probably will find them. Maybe like 1 or 2 that are kind of hard, but just from normal ass walking around and looking, you will find the main things. the things that you don't need all the blood crystals by a far margin. And so getting
Yeah.
the meditation thing and seeing how many of those damn things were everywhere was
Mhm.
kind of a pain. And I
Right.
much enjoyed exploring before I had that than after. Of course, I used it because I had it and I used it and I wanted to find everything after I got it, and I did. I found everything, even the stuff that doesn't show up, because some things don't show up on that,
Yeah.
like ghosts and other hidden areas. But I think it was the worst thing that they did in that game. That's the only gripe I had about it. It was like, okay, this would have been cool if they gave it to you like at the very very end. If they were like, okay, you have completed this much or whatever before you go into the trial, but here's something that if you want to go back and look at other stuff, I don't know how to implement it better, but I thought it was the worst part of the game. I would have much enjoyed continuing to explore without it. I think it just ruined the natural exploration, because before that I was like you said, Graham, going to these weird places. Like, yeah, when you got to the reality folding drive machine, you couldn't go inside of it, but like I walked around the whole thing and got up on it, and it's like as you get away from the island, the music stops and the whirring is just in your
Right.
head, and you're like, and the wonder of just like what's back here. And I almost got scared in a couple places. When I went to the pyramid, I went there before I could go inside and talk to the crying god, whatever his name was. And
Oh,
there's like a lion roaring sound. It's really loud in the thunder, and I was going around that thing and I was just scared the entire time.
yeah.
And there was nothing in the very back of it, but I wouldn't have went back there if I had the
Right.
meditation thing.
Right.
Probably I would have just been like, oh, there's no reason for me to go back there. But that was some of the funnest parts, exploring it, even though I wasn't meant to be back there. I think they kind of thought about that stuff just with building the atmosphere that, hey, they're going to be in weird places. The Syndicate HQ building, I got on top of that thing and then realized I could like drop down onto the balconies, and I ran the balconies, all of them. And one point I jumped, like fell off and had to restart my whole trip, and I kind of like that. So yeah, I think that showing you where all the stuff was through the world was just the worst thing. But I loved the game as what it is, because I mean it's a $20 game from a very small developer, and I kind of realized quickly that it was just all going to be about the text, and I threw myself into it as much as possible, and I think I did pretty good considering I've never played a game like this. Like Oberdin, like I said, was the most I've ever been away from any other type of game that I usually like to play, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get into a game like that was mostly tech. It was basically like a romance mystery novel
Right.
instead of a
It's
game.
like it basically was like a visual novel that you could walk around in.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the collection.
Mhm.
I mean I agree 100% with you about the I think the introduction of concentration, I think the execution of concentration was just really bad. Like having to hold down the button for X period of time, then fade to black, and then come back, and now things are highlighted for
Yeah.
like 10
You
seconds.
have to
There's-
Then you gotta,
meditate.
There's also,
Now you gotta
what
do
makes
it
that
all
even worse,
again.
Graham, is there's a toggle
Yeah. I
option
toggled that.
in the options, but it doesn't do what you think it does. When it just makes where you don't have to hold it down, but you still fade to black and have to wait. I was like, oh, toggle, you can just see the hearts immediately.
Yeah.
Nope.
That was
Nope.
honestly,
Yeah.
it made
Stupid.
my blood
was terrible.
boil that they
have to
implemented
pray,
this
man.
so poorly. I was like, how did they implement this? But what's even worse than the fact that they've implemented this so terribly is I agree 100% with what you're saying of it takes away from the explore aspect of the game.
Yeah, it did. It completely killed
100%.
it for me.
However,
I don't know how they didn't find that out in testing or something.
I think
Well, I found it at the end of the game, so
I-
it was good for me.
I think, but I don't think. I think there's a more fundamental problem than the fact that they're using this to take away from the exploration. The reason why I think they didn't realize that this was such a silly thing to implement and kind of took away was because I just think their exploration in general for the island wasn't that good at all. Like they went for a quantitative, like really let's place like stuff in the most obnoxious areas ever. I think if they would have just like brought things back, like there was the little red
Well,
chips.
there was kind of
Hold on. There was
some-
there was the red chips, right, where you had to put them onto the map and then it unlocked like like what was it, 2 blood
Fi-
crystals?
five.
Five
Oh,
blood
yes.
crystals.
Five.
That
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
first of
took
all,
me
that
forever to
that
find the last one
prize
for that.
that prize drove me
Yeah.
absolutely freaking crazy that it was just
Yep.
5
Yeah.
blood crystals.
Hey,
I
it's
was
a
like,
free admission to a double jump,
Are you
man.
freaking serious? But I think that those layouts, right, was perfect because it was all in that area, and I knew I didn't have concentrate at that point. I knew that they'd be in that area, and I had fun
Mhm.
going and collecting those red ones because I knew they'd be kind of there, and I was jumping on stuff and looking. And I was like, oh, there's one, and I'd pick it and I'd put it all. It's like that was great. What I'm sure I'm gonna get like an important piece of evidence with this, and it's just like, no.
5 blood crystals. Yeah, that.
That's-
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was frustrating.
But I think it goes.
I don't think they even showed up on Meditate.
Did they not?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they
I
do.
don't know. They do.
'Cause
do?
there's other ones.
I imagine they
Well,
would, but
Actually,
But-
there's
Yeah, I
nothing
found
quite
one
like
on
that.
Meditate.
but my point is, I think if they would have focused more on like quality natural exploration rather than just like here's an apartment complex, one of the like rooms here has like a little thing inside this little area and you're never going to know about it unless you just like get ultra lucky or have concentration. I really feel like the whole
Here.
concept of their collectathon was very poorly executed, and I would
Yeah,
have and I would have rather that they designed it better so that they didn't even need, because they built themselves, they did this collectathon thing and they executed, in my opinion, very poorly. They developed themselves into a corner, then they had to develop themselves out of the corner by putting in concentration, which was another bad on top of what they had already kind of developed themselves
yeah.
into.
I think it stemmed from some good ideas though, but I think you're right. I think they made a really big mistake. But I think everything was, first of all, the world was meant to be like a real paradise that people lived in and were in all the time. So there was not a lot of gamification of the actual, like you were
Right.
exploring in ways that's like nobody would be doing this. Like nobody would think to be jumping on these things because it's not a game world, it's a real world.
But they could have
And-
gamified it a little more, maybe, if they would have made it better.
but I think they went too much toward the like this is like where people are slaves are like going from their apartments to the thing to work, and then in the rest of it, like we're just trying to chill and get around, and so there's not a
Right.
lot of things. And then everything being strewn about was because of Shinji. Like he
Right.
was the chaos, and he had definitely 100% put those blood crystals everywhere to annoy you, and that was kind of a funny thing.
Right. It's like
but
funny
that's-
story wise, but not something that really pans out in the game.
Yeah,
like-
well, that's why I didn't like
Ugh.
getting the meditation, because I didn't feel the need. If I saw a blood crystal up on the top of something or like in a weird place, I didn't feel the need to go get it until
if it
I
was,
got
if it was really
meditation.
like annoying to
I'm
get,
the
I would.
exact opposite.
If it was
I
annoying to
collected
get,
everything.
I was just like,
I 100%ed it.
yeah,
collected
Well,
every
I
single
did
thing.
okay, but I'm talking about like just as far as just playing the game and progressing.
moment
like
to
if I
moment.
felt the need afterwards, I was definitely going to go back and get it. But yeah, moment
Yeah.
to moment, I didn't. But then getting the meditate, it makes you want to clear everything so that you can see more clearly where the things are you're missing, and you'll be on another side of something. You'll be like, oh, there's a heart over there. I'm going to go all the way over there and get to this, and then you get there and it's just a blood crystal.
right.
So I think it
Or a
was
save point.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or a safe point.
Why did
For
the
a
save
skin.
point
If you-
show
you
up
gotta
and
buy-
concentrate?
you got to buy the fast travel to get it off the
Oh, okay.
meditate. I bought the fast travels everywhere.
Oh.
Again, I
Same.
never didn't buy a fast travel. I don't think, like maybe the first couple times, but again, I realized very quickly that you should just be spinning the crap out of your blood
See,
stuff. So.
I was the opposite. I realized very quickly that I did not want to buy any of the fast travel spots because it would make the map have all of these listings, and I was like, I don't know where I want to teleport to get to the characters because I only teleported to talk to characters. So after unlocking like 3 or 4 of the teleports, I was just like, oh, wait a second. This is going to make the map really confusing because they don't label these characters well enough. So
Oh.
I only unlocked the teleports next to the NPCs, so it made it much easier for me to know, oh, this is the only
smart.
teleport I
Well,
have
see,
here.
and when you unlock the fast travel, you get the skins, which also comes with more text. Which again, that's what I was collecting. I was not
Yeah.
collecting anything else besides the text.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
unlocked all the fast travels and never used it once, except for to go back to where you started, so that you can get
Oh,
the
no.
few things
Dallin
to
paid
collect
all
over
these
there.
blood crystals for literally just nothing.
No, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just because, I don't know, I haven't really played a game where I tried to collect everything. Which I mean, a few games before we started actually doing these like the recordings that we're doing now, if we had extra time, I tried to 100% our like a few of the games and collect everything. I don't know what it is. I liked being able to look at the world. Again, I was over like 12 hours into the game. And I looked at the world and I'm like, oh man, there's like quite a bit of heart pieces, things that I've missed. The reason why I collected them was because I wanted, once I collected them, I'm like, I did it. Like I collected it all. But also
I
because I knew that
identify
some
with
of
that so
them were
much.
important. Some of them were important details. Like I didn't use the finding thing for it. I remember being like, oh, a damaged knife. Oh, a bottle with blood in it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't make sure I really find everything. Anyway,
Yeah, they
So
they do
this
have
tough
sections
topic.
like that, like right underneath again, right where the guards got murdered.
Yeah.
There
There's
could have
there's
been
a
more of that.
yeah, but there's very little of it, and that was like right next to where that specific thing happened. So yeah, it makes you think like, oh man, I gotta go around every corner because I could just go behind a trash can like way over here, and there might be like something somebody threw away.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that I think that's intentional, but yeah, it
And those
doesn't pay
things-
off 100%.
Right.
Yeah, those
George,
things
did you
don't show
collect
up in the
everything, George?
concentrate. I didn't collect everything, no, but I Dallin, when you said that feeling of I relate to that 100%. And I'm a collector. In games, I'm a collector. Like I had to consciously tell myself in Breath of the Wild that I didn't need all the 999 Koroks.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a
I had
fool's
to tell-
errand, is what that is.
Yes, yeah. But
Even the
there
creator,
was-
Nintendo will even say that.
there was still like part of my brain that whenever I would turn it on, I'd be like,
But
just
maybe
like
you
a little
need
like
all of them.
Yeah. So
2
it's just like,
hours collecting seeds and not playing the game.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like there's a possibility that I'm missing a seed in this area, and like I would like no, it's not important. I got to move on, and so that's how I was in this game as well. Like every little crook and cranny, I was like, what if there's something there? What if I miss something? What if I was just far away enough not to hear the little static sound that hinted that there was something there? Which I do got to give them props for. Like their audio design was decent enough so you could tell, like, oh, it's above me, it's below me,
Yeah,
it's
it was,
left,
it was
right.
pretty
Yep,
good.
it was
Again,
good.
necessary. I think it was necessary because the way the world was built, like I was saying, like not being gamified, they needed to add
Yeah.
that visual and that audio cue to
Yes.
make you, oh, like just walk up these apartment stairs and you'll find the thing.
Yeah, and
but you had to do a
Some
really
drove me
mundane
crazy
thing.
though.
If
Yeah,
Yeah,
and-
I
and
like
so,
hear
I
one
was-
and I'm like, where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
I could not find it till like hours later.
Yeah, and so, but that was the thing. I was just while playing the game, I felt, what if I'm missing something? And then I tell myself, no, it's probably just a blood crystal. You won't need it. You get way more. Like I ended with like 38 left over or something.
Yeah,
Crazy
it
like
would have been
that.
better if there was a different queue for the blood crystals.
exactly,
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
something.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
Yeah,
think-
different cues.
I think that really hits on like, for me, the crux of the game. I think there was a lot of really interesting ideas, but I mean, the developers will never listen to this conversation. So, like, I have a lot of like negative things about this game. But if they ever heard this conversation, like the thing that I would want them to know is I really do think they had a lot of really good ideas. I just think the execution was most of the time either not good or like really bad. But I think like I would be interested
What are
to
some
s-
specifics? Like I'm
Oh,
interested
man,
to hear
like,
your opinion.
He mentioned a few
Like
already.
everything.
Yeah, he did
like,
mention the
I
momentum
I
and stuff.
either
I
mildly
think we probably already
disliked.
said most of it.
Yeah, like I said a lot of the things. Like I
Okay.
mildly disliked to like very much disliked most of the game's aspects in like all ways. But except the island itself, I thought was really interesting. It was just disappointing that for me, it didn't feel like much came of my exploration from it because I also really didn't like the story. I didn't think the writing was interesting. I didn't think the characters were generally interesting. I thought there was lots of like word salad, verbal diarrhea of just like stuff that I didn't really care about. I felt like a lot
I
of
thought all that stuff was so amazing.
See-
every Shinji one-liner was like, I loved it.
Yeah, like
Shinji
It was casual.
everywhere was amazing.
yeah,
I feel like real conversations though. Some of the
It's
times it's like,
probably just my style, my
right. And I think it's just a
my
difference of
humor. I don't know.
right. Like there were some times where I was like, okay, what Shinji's saying here is like it was pretty funny, blah blah blah. But like I just felt like a lot of the dialogue was just inconsequential, like so much. Like sometimes I felt like I would just like push through stuff and like skim keywords and just be like, most of what's being said here is just completely irrelevant, and I don't
was
feel like
pretty
I'm
enamored.
getting anything.
I
Yeah.
think that was on purpose though.
Well, but
I
I
think
mean,
that was their.
Jake's.
I think that was their world building and character building.
And you'd almost skip parts. Did you guys notice that I would be busy reading, and sometimes they'd have the weird dialogue thing where they would like, some person said the same 4 lines in a row. It was the same line 4 times in a row. It's like, dang it, LD. Next one, dang it, LD.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
like, kept on doing it. Or again, it's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
like the
voice acting, yeah.
audio. The audio.
Again,
kept on
I
reading-
learned how to get that off. Like, just ignore that.
But it's
but
part
if
of
you
the
kept on reading-
experience, right? Like I can't just be like,
Yeah.
oh well. I mean, like it wasn't one thing that like stopped me from enjoying the game. It was all of these things
Yeah.
together that I was just like, it just prevented me from really enjoying the whole experience. It was just
I
like,
agree. I
there was
think
a
this
little
game is
game.
very specifically for certain people that
yeah, maybe.
and I didn't know that I was gonna like it. And again, the gameplay is just not that great. I agree with you.
But
there.
it wasn't just the gameplay though. It was the gameplay, the exploration, the collecting, the
That's what we're
writing,
talking
the
about right
story. But yeah, I'm just talking overall. Like, I was honestly legitimately excited for this game, and so I was legit disappointed that I didn't like as as much as I disliked it. So, but
If I could mention a
I-
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, like kind of what Gareth was saying about like the intention of some of the dialogue. I noticed that it sounded like real conversations, real conversations. It's just like I went like, oh, what do they know about this? It's like I have nothing to say. Okay, but there were some times where if you did not read it, their eyes moved, like their face would move, like they'd be like this, like, what is it, LD? It's like, what do you know about this? And it's like, I don't know anything about that. So it, like their face gave off if they
I
were
didn't
being,
notice
if they were
that.
lying or not. Yeah, so sometimes they change their
Interesting.
face if you caught them. And Shinji tells you earlier on, he's like, find the people that their smiles disappear.
Yeah,
And that's how I knew about Yuri. That's how I knew about Yuri. Yeah, he
but again,
eventually
that
just like,
doesn't- that does you don't apply that, Dallin. That's not part. If you notice that, that's just them giving you. But again, that information doesn't really
Right.
help you. Like
I dug maybe too deep into it, but I
Yeah.
eventually I noticed them moving, being a little fishy about certain things, and their character model changed a little bit. So I'm like,
But-
oh snap! I've been reading this whole time and didn't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things I guess you could miss that might. The ghost girl tells you she's actually kind of a hint thing. Like once you unlock where she is, she kind of gives you hints when you go and talk to her. She will actually like
Oh.
physically give you hints, like
Wow. I
go
didn't
to
know
this
that.
area and look for this or something. I had almost done everything by the time I got to her, so it didn't really do anything for me. But I noticed that if you were struggling, that she was kind of supposed to be that kind of cheap, like here's some hints.
Was she the one with the
But again,
flesh arm?
it was just going to the right place because everything was given to you. All you had to do was find stuff and talk to people. You didn't have to figure anything out.
See,
Like,
that was another really big disconnect for me is I loved
yeah.
Obra Dinn because I was actively solving. Like
Yeah.
I had to
Yes.
do the solving.
100%.
In this game, there was like a point, maybe this is terrible to admit, but there was a point in the game where I was just like, nothing matters because if I just push next and talk to people and then collect stuff, I don't have to pay attention to anything that's happening.
Yeah, you can totally play the game that way. You
Yeah.
don't have to.
Which
You can't make a mistake on relationships stuff.
You
though.
would have to probably maybe go back and read notes though for like
On your-
right on
geography.
where to go next and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, there's must be more evidence here. If this person told me a secret about that person,
Right.
then I should go back to this area and look for that because
Right.
them just telling me is not always that enough evidence. There's,
Right.
Yeah.
there's very little things you actually have to think about in that sense. But
Yeah.
so
So
I
it was
explored the world so hard that none of that mattered. I just got into like the actual conversations and role playing a little
Yeah.
bit.
so it
Your
really
response does matter a few times though, like with Lydia.
yeah, like
if,
I
if
would
you do something wrong.
I would not just like go through and spam and just not pay attention completely. But like there was a point where I was like mostly skimming and then giving reasonable answers what I thought was like reasonable given the context. So I mean, I just didn't like that. I didn't like a lot of things, but one of the major things I didn't like that it boiled down into being like a visual novel that like I thought was going to be something else, and then I was like, okay, it's more of a visual novel, but then I don't find
Yeah.
the visual novel aspects of it interesting, and I don't like. Maybe from here we'll transition because we talked a lot about the gameplay. Maybe we'll transition into like story, characters, but like, why did 90% of the characters have to just be unlikable a-holes? Like, That
They
just
all
like
call you
Oh,
what? Freak. They all call you
Freak,
freak.
yeah, they're
except
just
for one
like-
person.
like Lady Love Dice is like, hey, do you want to hang out? And like Yuri's just like, yeah, freak, let's hang out. Like, okay, let's have a nice
Well,
chat. And I'm just
definitely.
like,
Okay, so the first couple people that you run into, Carmelinella,
Carmilla.
yeah,
and
Silence?
Yuri,
Carmella.
they're basically kids compared to everybody else
right.
because they were born in the
Only a
sequences.
few hundred years or
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah,
years.
they were born in the sequences, and they were basically spoiled brats.
Yep.
And so yeah, and most people don't like you in general because of what you supposedly did.
Why you were exiled.
Right.
Yeah, so you were
Your
exiled.
genealogy as well affects it.
But yeah, I agree with you that most of the characters are just straight. Well, I guess it's really kind of 50-50 actually. I think it
I like
actually
that.
is. If you think about it, it's split 50-50 between people that just don't like you and people that do like you.
I like Sam's
Yeah,
voice.
Daybreak.
Yeah,
Sam's
the
voice
Daybreaks
actor.
like you.
ALD.
Dr. Doom
Yeah.
Jazz, which is like the coolest name ever.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom Jazz.
Yeah,
And he was my
I
favorite
wish
character.
he would have been cooler. He was kind of cool. Like I liked that he had the Jack's arms.
I really liked his design a lot because I'm a
Yeah,
big
his-
like arm gauntlet kind of guy. So I thought his design was really cool. But yeah,
and he likes tweaking his arms. Like he had his tools in his thing when
Yeah.
you invest his area. But
Did you
Yeah.
max out any relationships with anybody? I maxed every single person's relationship
maxed
out,
them
which
all.
Yeah.
it didn't
have
serve
to
any
max
purpose
them
at the end. I was sad about that. It didn't matter if
it gives you
maxed
the
out.
probes.
yeah, it gives you probes.
Yeah,
So
There were a
What probes?
few.
couple
Like-
probes.
you get a probe option.
You get a couple.
Oh,
get more
probes.
oh, you
information
mean to
with
ask
data
my
from them.
question? Not when you max it out.
No, no,
Sometimes I
they-
only talk to them twice.
No, when you raise your relationship, you get an option above the questions where they tell you something.
Yeah, exactly. But
But he was
once
saying
you
that
actually
you don't always
max it,
get them after the max out.
yeah,
Right.
once you actually hit max relationship, I was like, man, I wonder if in the hearing later on something happens where I like something happens where they
Right,
admit
because
more
they're
because I
your
did because I
friends.
worked. I actually because I was their friends. So but I don't think it did any
You do-
benefit.
You get artifacts again.
Yeah,
That's
it was
a
like
few
you
of-
get
yeah.
artifacts from a few that you probably wouldn't have got if you didn't max them out.
Right.
Like Akiko actually likes you at one point and gives you, which is crazy because she literally
hates
like
me in the
every time you
beginning.
go to her,
Yeah.
she's like, "You're gonna die. I'm gonna."
What did
kill
she
you."
call?
Like,
What
yeah.
did she say? What was it?
Merochito.
Yeah. Is that a word or is that made up?
I
Oh
have
no!
no
So
idea.
there's
she's
she calls you.
Romanian.
Okay.
Yeah, she does. I looked up some of her words, and
Oh.
in the beginning she calls you a B word a few times.
She was
But,
she
like-
was taken or ascended or whatever from Romania, like
Okay.
old time
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Romania. So yeah, she spoke Romanian. Yeah, it was a little weird to like think about how everybody was immortal and how they didn't. Like she looked like a 17-year-old volleyball player, like
yeah.
college girl or something. She didn't look old, like,
Right.
but she acted young too. Like she was just like really. There was some disconnect there for me. Like, I guess too many of the characters just acted like young spoiled brats, and then the other ones
Right.
were just like Dr. Doom Jazz and Lydia Daybreak and Sam Daybreak just wanted to have a good time, and they were just
Right.
kind of over everything. That was kind of the point. Is like that's feels like that's the two polar opposites that you get when you spend all this time on a supposed paradise forever.
Right.
It's like you go one of these two directions, and one leads to like mass murder and wanting to take over and power because you think you can do it better, and
Just
or
leave.
just not caring and wanting to be done with it.
Right.
Go to the real world.
What
the
was-
real
Become a
world.
religious zealot.
Or become a
like
religious
Witness.
witness, man.
Yeah.
Oh, sinner!
His voice clips just drew me crazy. I was just like, okay, I
Wit-
got
whose?
it, buddy, I got it. Witness to the end.
Yeah, I could understand some of his words. He'd be like, "To the gods."
Yeah, it
the
sounds like
gods are
Bane.
parallel sideways,
something
upside
in his
down.
mouth.
I'm just like, all
Mhm.
right, okay.
I think my favorite voice actor possibly in the game. I don't know. There was something about Sam's voice. It was
Sam
so
was
cool. It was
probably
kind of
cool.
a new voice. It was a new type of voice to me, and I was like, "It's like fine. I'll slip you some money for you to talk to me some more." It's just like it was just so funny. He was such
He's
a.
Middle
I
Eastern.
hated. He wouldn't say a lot. He wouldn't talk a lot. But anyway, there's lots of cool, interesting things that I want to kind of talk about too. Like as soon as you find his the tunnel underneath his house, I was like, oh snap.
Yeah, that was an
Like, what's
interesting
going
part
on?
for sure. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on here? There's something's going on here. That's
I'm a little
interesting.
sad. I'm a little sad because there was a moment like that that I 100% missed. I know I said I tried 100% the game. I ended up, because of the ending, there was something that happened at the ending of the game that made me knew I did something wrong. So I looked to see what did I do wrong? So I Googled the ending because I beat the game, and I missed something 100% completely, and it ruined the game for me. Unfortunately, we'll get to that
What-
later.
what
I don't know
did
if we want to talk about that now.
Oh.
Should we talk about that now?
Cryptic, Dallin.
Can I talk about the ending?
Wait,
Well,
okay, so
I'm
maybe
gonna-
we'll
I'm
put
gonna
that.
guess-
That sounds pretty juicy. We'll
Uh.
put that in your closing remarks. We'll hear how Dallin ruined
Well,
the
no,
game.
it's part of the story, though.
Or
The
that's
game
Yeah.
was so good. The game was so good until
Either
3 days
way.
ago when I was working in it. Anyway,
Well,
but
yeah,
there was.
I guess you can
anyway.
say it wherever you want to say it, but
yeah, wherever you feel is
I-
appropriate, Dallin.
We can get to I can mention the ending part later because it's the biggest point of the entire
Game
murder
is the
mystery.
Okay,
Is what?
so
Oh, I was gonna say that I thought you were getting to the trials.
Oh, the trials. I thought.
is the biggest point of the entire game for me.
Yeah, but there was one
Right.
thing that I missed completely, and it ruined the game at the end because I realized I had such a great experience with the game because I really did like it. I know you guys were saying that you didn't like it. But yeah, I liked this game more than Obra Dinn, but Obra Dinn was definitely a better better done game.
okay.
It definitely it had Obra Dinn was a more lean thing. You know that meme where it's like, I really like this. It's like, this is amazing playing
great,
at this car.
but I
This is
like-
great, but I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing where it's like, Obra Dinn's great, but I really like this.
yeah,
the
there's a lot
the
more
whole point of the ending
masterful
about what.
things going on with Obra Dinn. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, but again, props. Great, Obra Dinn's great, but yeah, the literal ending, the whole reason of the whole game, the one thing was ruined. I guess I'll talk about it right now. Are we fine talking about? Oh,
Yes.
when we get to the
Yes.
trials.
I have some
What
stuff
did you
to say
think
about
about the story
characters.
overall?
Yeah,
we can
let's-
talk about things before the trials.
I
Let's talk about
have-
things before the
Yeah,
trials.
let's
but
talk
Yeah.
about the characters.
Go ahead, Gareth.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's Gareth.
Speaking of Sam's tunnel, I found that very early on too, and so I ended up going into the what was it,
The
the
dead
dead
zone?
zone,
Yeah.
Infected.
very before I knew what was going on.
So
It
you
was
don't
like
even
in
know what
there.
was going on there. That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
Same.
had found I'd learned about Henry's possession, but then I found the fridge with an empty vial of blood. It was like this was before I realized blood vials were used for stuff. It's like, why is there a blood vial?
Same.
Why is this important? And then I found the weird bunker with the demon in it. I was like, this is odd.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
the
I
heck?
guess I'll
I
figure
bet.
it out later.
It was way cool. I was
Wow.
way interested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it
was?
Yeah.
That would be certainly a trippy thing to discover right away. Yeah. What was everyone's favorite characters or favorite story beats? I thought personally my favorite character was Lydia. I thought I love Lydia's design. Dark hair, blue hair.
Yeah,
It was good.
and when you talk to her, you get to go to a different space that has that cool
Yeah, it has the-
noise, and you feel more intimate with her. I think that was
Yeah.
probably their best thing to make you feel intimate with the character was that, and it's. I mean, because there was nothing else with anybody really that you
Right.
did.
Yeah, it was just a cool sequence. And I think the portal room really reminded me of the corridor room, really reminded me of Myst. I already had Myst Riven vibes, but then going into that room I was like, this really makes me feel like Myst. I wonder if Myst was some inspiration for them. But I thought that was it was certainly an interesting
corridor
story
room?
beat for me. The
The
corridor
other
room
one?
with the portals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was assuming that was what Dallin said that he
Oh.
didn't find.
It ruined the whole game for me.
You didn't find that?
Really?
He didn't find that. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
That's what he's about to
fine.
say.
I'll say it now. No. Okay.
Okay, we're talking about characters and story beats. What was your favorite
Yeah.
It goes to
character
the
and story
trial.
beat, Dallin?
I can't talk
Yeah.
about a character I technically didn't meet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I
Frick
know
my
what happened.
life.
No.
Frick my life, man.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
so-
yeah,
that-
I don't know how you guys didn't know that that's what he was talking
Yeah,
about.
I didn't know that's
It's
what he
like the
was
only
talking
thing in the
about.
game that's really hard to miss.
Yeah, no, I can get
Or
to
really
that later,
easy
but
to miss. Rather. I said that
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, my character, it was really hard for me to find a character that I really liked because I don't know, I wish I could just look at
Yeah,
all the characters right now. I really liked the whole story about how come Sam is looks the way he is and he's alive. The story about how they fell in love and that thing. I'm like, it's kind of cool. And I liked no matter what happened at the end, like I kind of really wanted, no matter what happened, I wanted Sam and Lydia to like live through this. Like I really hope that nothing
at the
bad
end of the
happens.
day,
Same.
after the murder, Dallin's shipping characters. That's all that really
Yeah.
matters.
Oh, they
They're
married
married.
already.
They're married, man. I don't ship, man. I don't ship.
Well, no,
but
that shows that they actually did something to actually make you feel for some like,
Yes.
and those were the two that I think you're supposed to feel the most for.
Yeah, I think
Which-
so.
yeah.
They did a
and
good
they
job on
backstab
that.
you with that if you play the game correctly. They backstab you with that pretty hard.
Yeah.
yeah,
so-
I really liked a little. There was bits and pieces of every character that I did like, but off the top of my head, if I had to say like those two, I really liked. There's just a few bonding moments, and it just seemed so real. It felt like real conversations a few times.
Yeah,
and
like
it was really
they
cool.
were genuinely like, who cares about all this stuff? Let's catch up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, for sure. George?
For me, so there's a few things that as far as like characters and story beats, I disliked most of the characters. I think the only ones I truly liked were Sam and Lydia, Daybreak, and Dr. Doomjazz. The rest of them, a Crimson Acid was, I kind of sympathized with her story a little bit.
Yeah, she was kind of interesting.
Yeah. But one thing that you said earlier, Graham, that you didn't like about just the game was the fact that there wasn't a lot of deduction involved. And so I have a couple things to say about that and how it relates to characters. I also disliked that it was less of a deduction type game like Obra Dinn. I would have preferred that. But at the same time, what I think that allowed the game to do was instead what Moose said was it allowed you to present to you the end result of what happens when aliens, which they called gods, when aliens come to Earth and they provide humans with immortality. And they make humans basically
well, you
powerful
can even just
and
boil it down to trying to build a perfect society.
trying to build a
Mhm.
perfect society. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did enjoy, as far as like the story, I did enjoy the fact that I was able to sit back a little bit and just kind of see, I guess,
Let it wash over
development-
you like waves, like vaporwave.
Well, I
circle.
don't know. but no, like I excuse me, I did enjoy the fact that I was able to see like just how cynical like people can become, and how
Yeah.
even though immortality is one of those things that personally, at least I picture when I picture like perfection. Like in Lord of the Rings, elves are immortal, and they're kind of like almost a
They
perfect
become like a
society
perfect-
and stuff like that. Yeah, but humans in this game, we do the exact opposite.
Ruin
Mostly
everything.
mostly everyone in the syndicate continues to commit atrocities, because what happens is they enslave a bunch of regular humans from like the regular world, and then when it fails, they just kill them all. They call it
Kill
a
them all and start it
ritual.
over again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, they
kill 'em
are.
all.
I mean, they're not just doing it for ritual. I mean, they do have. They're supposed to be collecting and resurrecting these gods.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, they're supposed to be doing that.
But then they
Well,
say, who are gods, though? What's the difference between gods and demons? How do
Yeah,
you tell the difference?
Kind of the other
I
point is
was,
like, yeah, they
Yeah.
separated the. Yeah, go ahead, George. I'm sorry, we're getting way
No,
too
you're good. I mean,
interruptive.
but like it's funny because they continue to be terrible people, and then not only do they become more cynical, they become more prideful and more greedy, and it's just, I don't know. I liked that aspect of the story because I was able to basically see the end result of what happened to these people after being granted like an amazing gift as immortality. And so I do agree with you that there's less room for deduction, and then I dislike that part. But at the same time, I don't know how they'd be able to kind of feed you this story if they left something like that in.
Yeah,
And so that's just kind of how I saw it.
yeah, it just sucks. It kind of just feels like almost like a misnomer that the game is classified as a mystery, or like a mystery, because I mean it is a mystery, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're just not doing the things like we already talked about it. You're not doing anything besides go around and talking to people. You have two voice line choices when you're talking to somebody anytime that they need a retort from you, and they don't really matter as far as I could tell which one you do. But are you okay there, Graham?
Yeah, I gotta make sure
Good.
my laundry doesn't fall out of my window. So
What?
in Japan, you don't dry your laundry in like a dryer. You
Oh yeah, you just
dry
you're
it out the
hanging
window. So
Okay,
I'm like
yeah.
looking at
I
my
thought
laundry.
the aliens. I think
Yeah,
the
I thought
aliens were coming
they're
to abduct
coming.
you.
Paradise Island's about to begin for me. So yeah, hang on a
Your-
sec.
is
You
your
guys can
island
keep
being
going. Hang on
destroyed?
just a sec.
Yeah.
It did make I knew there was at least once with Lydia at the end. I knew the last time before you max out her relationship, there's one point where I said something, which it stunk. I thought I was saying something good, and it just all of a sudden
I know
the main
exactly what you're
character
talking
said
about.
something
She's
bad.
like, we're done.
She's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But then I restarted
I-
the game, and she gives you a painting. If you do the other
Oh,
option.
see, I missed that. That's
Yeah, I didn't get the
Oh,
painting
because you
either.
ask her to make a painting for you at one point, don't you? Because you
Yes,
find
you
something or
do.
some artwork and you were like, hey, why don't you do one for me? See, that's the kind of stuff that I like, and I'm really glad. I'm really upset now that you told me that I missed that painting because same thing happened to
Sorry.
me. I was not doing like Graham and just mashing through most of the stuff. I was paying attention to almost everything I was reading really intently, and I thought that exact same spot that you're talking about, I thought I was saying something that could have been just like neutral as well, and then she got really upset because at that point I guess she just wants you to be super super hard on her side. But having to make those little decisions felt inconsequential but also really important at the same time because I was so invested in, like, once I got to like a character, I or if I didn't like them and I was just trying to play them, like Yuri for instance, I started to at first I was butting heads with him, and then I was like, I'm just gonna flaunt his
Placate
ego.
him.
Or,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Play into
placate him.
his ego.
He
Yeah,
doesn't like sarcasm.
and
Remember.
just tell him whatever he wants because I don't care. I was like, I'm not gonna hang out with this guy afterwards. He's definitely going down because I know he did something like
Right.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's just too fishy. So my answer to what character was my favorite is Lady Love Dies.
Okay.
Is
Oh,
my favorite
snap.
character.
Of course, the main character.
I am
Ah.
Lady Loves. I'm going to dress up as her, and I'm going to put lipstick on. And
Send pictures.
get
We'll
my
put it on
cool
social
gun.
media.
Yeah, she's cool.
Is
But
paradise
but
worth saving?
but outside of that, I do agree with you. Lydia is like you feel the most intimate with her. So Lydia and Sam, probably the second right below that, and I just like everybody in general a lot because they all play their roles, and I just like the backstory of all of it. Like I like that you've got the two young brats that are the heads of the conspiracy, and then you just got everybody else wanting to go along with them because they've been too scared to do so for so long. But they all have things that they don't like about, like one person wants power, and one person doesn't want to lose their Akiko doesn't want to lose her soldiers anymore. She's tired of falling in love over and over and over, all these eons of falling in love with these mortals, which she's not supposed to be doing anyway, and then having to kill them all, and like literally falling in love and having relationships with them, and then Crimson Acid just kind of lurking in the sewers because she doesn't want to be a part of any of it really. She's
just
just
want
like
to deal with his people.
Yeah, she's wanted to get out of it, and then they made her, almost seems like for torture, they made her an idol, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna put you everywhere, and you're gonna have to do all these things to be an idol. And she's just like, I just don't want to do it anymore. She's looking for anything else. I think that at the very end, when she takes you offer her a job at the end, in case, and if you guys didn't get that part, I think she was just looking for anything else to do with her time. That's why she was lurking in the shadows, just trying to find all these secrets, which really didn't matter to her all that much. So everybody has their reasons that build this basically House of Cards is what it is. I mean, it's the paradise seems so real and so dense, and it is in a sense of the history and the characters, but it's also a House of Cards, and every idea that it has is like a fallacy. It's just like doesn't work, and it's going in 70 different directions, and it's just a horrible place. And so at the end of the day, you're just like, yeah, I just want to find a friend and have a drink and hang on and figure out what to do next, because this whole thing sucks. And I think that comes across really well. And again, I really liked the artifacts. There were some that really tugged at my heart. There's the colored stones you find on the beach, and it says the children of the citizens paint these before the end of the island. And they're like, because it has something to do with the afterlife. And then it says right underneath that, the citizens get no afterlife. I was like,
Yeah.
damn, that's
Dang.
dark. I was just like, wow, I can't believe
These little kids getting
This-
slaughtered.
Yeah,
The
the kids are like
sacrificial
going out.
room was
They're like
crazy.
going out and painting these rocks and like celebrating the fact that that it's ending and that they know they're gonna die, but they're like excited for the afterlife. And then the game's just like straight up, there's no afterlife for
Psych.
them. Like they, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's just crazy, and then all the backstory of Earth and what happened on Earth with the they call him the first one or whatever, the goat
Silent
going,
Goat.
you know, yeah, the
Silent.
they called these people gods, and again, I think that's a big thing that they keep saying we're supposed to be doing things for these gods. Well, these gods, Shinji just says at one point, or somebody, that they're just beings from further
Yes.
out in the cosmos, and we don't even know if they're actually we shouldn't be following them. Basically, yeah, they have powers, and they've given all these powers to us, to the Syndicate, but like for what purpose? Like the one god that you actually meet in the game when you go to the big pyramid and unlock it, he just doesn't like you and doesn't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And
He's super petty.
I guess which is to
Yeah.
be
Poor
which
God.
is to be expected, but
I feel like he lied to me.
it just
He's-
really doesn't do. You think you'd go in there and he would give you some sort of wisdom and be like, hey, yeah, this is like, because this is important, and he's basically just doesn't care. Like, I don't know, he's just like, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think
But-
he's just tired of people cutting chunks of his flesh away.
Yeah, that too. They were like
Seriously.
they were like torturing. Yeah, leave it to them to be given all these powers and then abuse them and
Abuse it, yeah.
keep a god locked up and
Mm-hmm.
take
He
But
was
anyway,
super
all
done.
of that
He seemed
stuff,
super
all-
done with everything.
all of
Yeah.
the text and all of the characters and all the backstories, all the statues that you read, all the tablets that you get. I just loved it. I loved reading it and just imagining this world, like not only the island itself, but the whole cosmos. Like, where did Shinji come from? What are all these supposed gods doing out here, just running around giving mortals powers, and to what end? And the fact that actually we fought them. Like, there's a bunch of stories of gods being locked away under secret pyramids and chambers and on moons of some place, and that either humans or other gods locked them up. So there's like all this deep backstory to it, and that continues to be rolled out. It doesn't just most of it gets dumped on you at the beginning with that one area I was talking about, but I like how it's doled out continually through the speech and through the artifacts and stuff. The one thing that upset me the most was the whiskey glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So the whiskey glasses take
Yes.
you ahead to the
25th.
actually not really ahead in time, I don't know, but yeah, to the
Oh,
25th
current.
sequence.
They take you to some time, but it's for sure the 25th.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
25th. It's the perfect 25 island, and you don't know who these people are, but Lydia has taken a bunch of other people already to the island when this all occurred, to the next island. But they're talking as if they know what's going on, but they're not supposed to. And I think at one point there it is said that 2 people specifically that she brought to the next island right before this all happened, but they're never mentioned again. So I didn't write it down, so I was like, I don't
Is
know
it
who
her
these are.
husband?
Though they were
No.
council members, but I don't understand why they know what's going on, because supposedly they're not supposed to be able to, but they're talking as if they do all the way up to the end.
I think it
And-
happened. I think all of those are after Lydia's solved it and dispensed justice. And
But then at
they're-
the very end, they're talking like, "Do you think she did the right thing?" And I guess that could still be.
And
Yeah.
we'll figure out. It says,
Yeah.
"Will we need her again?" It's like, we'll see. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
they also talked about like, did they do it, or like, did they fix the stuff with 24 to allow 25 to happen? It's like, well, she must have, because like we're here, and it's like,
We're here, I guess so.
but they say
yeah.
no. They say like, no. It's obviously not everything's figured out.
That was
right.
yeah.
I'm
That
glad
was the part that
confused you guys too, because it
Yeah,
confused me.
For me, I was
I was
just like,
hoping we'd resolve.
this, but
well,
that
Graham
was,
obviously he was not
He's like, this is not
involved
important at all.
I was like, this is like,
Click, 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 click.
yeah, see, like the
Yeah.
problem for me is just like I looked at like those conversations, and I read most like I read for the first half, I read most, if not everything, and then for the second half, I was skimming, but for those conversations, I was just like, they're just nothing conversations that don't really amount to anything. Like, they're not impacting the
They're
experience that I
world
have.
building.
Yeah, but to me, they weren't world building along with most of the
War
text.
building too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the whiskey glasses again. I think they were the worst. They were like the weakest part.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I don't know
it was,
what
it
the
was
point
word
was.
count building. That's what I felt like.
Yeah,
But
but
I did like though. I did like one thing you said, Jake, that um, all the stuff that they tried is just futile, and it never works out, and it's always wrong.
yeah,
And it's kind
and
of funny
everybody
that
loses their mind in some way, like in a
yeah,
different way. But
and it's funny that throughout the whole game, they're always talking about Perfect 25, how it's going to be the perfect island,
yeah,
everything's going to be solved. And about three-quarters of the way through, you find out that actually no, they found out how to keep corruption from seeping into the actual concrete of the actual island.
yeah,
But then
but the
humans are
citizens are gonna be
exactly just
We've
as
got a big
horrible
piece
as
of
ever.
corruption called humans.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So all this
yeah. Throw out
effort,
the fact that that they have to kidnap humans and make them slaves to begin with, like
Yeah.
that doesn't make it perfect. And then yeah, now
yeah,
they're gonna make them even worse off.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like how they made
Well,
some of the
they won't have
characters
to.
with. Oh,
They won't have to go from island to island. They'll just stay on the island and kill the humans and bring new ones in. And
yeah.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think that's
I
what they
liked,
call perfect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's a lot of bad things that happened, but yeah, getting to know the characters more, not to like justify them. I think what they did is still wrong. But then it was cool because eventually they like say why they did what they did. Like
yeah,
the architect did it because her whole family was oppressed, and like her dad was like charged for something that he didn't do. Like the
Right.
marshal like loved somebody, and like Sam and Lydia like they just wanted to get out of this whole thing. Like Witness wanted
Leave
to
the
actually
kingdom.
create actual purity. Like all their reasons and what they wanted to do were good, but it's how they did it. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Everybody's
The
motives
trial.
were definitely like the driving force of why you were supposed to care about. Because again, yeah, like Akiko, she's not just mad and wants a military state. She wants it for a reason. Because she doesn't want to keep losing all these people.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, the architect feels like she's being punished for something that's not her fault because she's just a kid of somebody who did something wrong. So it's not her fault. She should be allowed. And of course, that makes her more power hungry. And Yuri is the one that I don't understand.
Yuri's just evil.
But you,
Vicious.
yeah,
Isn't he
Yuri.
just
You
like
find the
vain?
okay,
He's
podium,
just vain
find
and
the
Actually, I
evil,
do
is he
get it.
not?
powered
He-
up.
Huh?
He-
Say again.
He's just like vain and evil, is he not?
Yeah,
Power
but
hungry,
I
yeah.
just something just occurred to me though is Lady Love Dies was in jail because or in exile because she was taken advantage of by a god, which everybody like multiple people after talking to everybody in the game say that it wasn't her fault, like because nobody could do anything to stop it, and that's one thing that nobody ever takes into account is the gods could just do whatever they want to anybody, and
You get
Yuri
punished for it.
you find
Yeah.
out that Yuri actually is being seduced by a
Deceived.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Powered
blue
up.
god, I can't remember, and wants to be released from Earth, from the real world. And so he has that god has given him like a perfect body and everything, and like told him to come get the god. So that's I guess
It's true.
he
Yeah.
Yeah.
could be seen as just a victim
A
as well,
victim.
like
Yeah.
because he
Seduced
doesn't
by a
have a
god.
motive other than that. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did find that interesting that like things that like people like you said like people would say like oh it's not your fault or like it was unavoidable and blah 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 but it's like but you're always punished anyways like you
Yeah.
get the full brunt of the punishment regardless of what's happened.
instead of admitting that we are powerless to these things and we don't know what the heck we're doing, we're just going to pretend like, oh yeah, it was you that messed up, not that the whole way we understand our world and what we're
Right.
doing is messed up, because that's what it is. It's like they're
Right,
trying
because
to
if they admitted that then the whole project
yeah, then
falls
it's like,
apart.
okay, well, wait a second, why are we doing this for these gods? Okay,
Exactly.
they gave us powers, but we really shouldn't be messing with this. We should be figuring out a way to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
and that's why the leader, I think, got what is his name, Monas. I never knew how to say
Montserrat.
his name.
Montserrat. Yeah.
Montserrat. That's
No,
what he was paranoid, and that's why he was carrying around a gun, because he was just like, I think he realized that there was like nothing there was nothing they could do. He couldn't make the island perfect, and he wasn't sure that he wanted to resurrect gods, obviously, because he kept putting it off.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Anyway.
It is interesting.
Yeah,
all right.
I liked the world.
Should
Do
we
you wanna
move
talk about
on?
the ending?
Should we move on to so let's talk a little bit about like the art and visuals and the audio. We did talk a little bit about that at the start, but is there anything in particular that people wanted to mention?
I think we could just say the character models. I would want to say the character models were awesome. Like even though some of them were a little weird, but everybody's character design and the way they were just 2D drawn into these um, different things. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just thought the characters were awesome, and the fact that they didn't move, but they were still so alive was cool to me. And then the music, and I'll let somebody else take it from there.
Yeah, I really like the character design of a handful of them. I really like Shinji's design. I thought was really cool. I think that was a good way to like introduce the game. I was like, whoa, like I especially like I love cube aesthetics in general. So like Shinji's head on this like furry freaking muzzle with this freaking cube head. I was like, okay, this is
Mhm.
sick. Like I'm really digging this. And then like
Multiple
Lydia's
arms.
yeah, multiple arms. Yeah, like it was really
Yeah,
cool
he's
design.
flipping you off.
He's
and
flipping
then,
you
Yeah, and then
off
he's
and
got his
and he has the
groin.
triple X
It's like
across his groin.
yeah, like it's
They
just
have
like
to censor it because he's naked.
yeah, and it was just like it's very like tongue in cheek funny of like look at this like he's just like vulgar and crass and he has an interesting design as well. I thought it was pretty cool. And then like the next person you see is like Judge and Lydia and like those characters have like great designs. I can't say the same for like all the characters. Like some of the characters were a little more bland. Like Yuri was kind of
Yuri and
more bland.
Carmelina were pretty boring.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
Even Crimson Acid, like I don't know, was just kind of like a chick with a goat head, and I was just like, all right. So
I felt like the anthropomorphic goat of her head was pretty cool though. Like it was done in a way
yeah,
that
it was not too
Like
bad.
two
didn't
separate
just look like
horns.
a
Yeah.
goat.
So I thought overall, I really thought the aesthetic was pretty good. I think they did an all right job on. There's something, and maybe because it's a small studio and they're like amateurs in creating games. I don't think they've made another game. I think this is their first one, right? But like the
Don't know.
the island felt like really like gamey. And I actually really liked that. Like it felt like it was like almost like a game island that was made like 10 years ago in a game.
Yeah.
And so I actually really enjoyed that part of it was that feeling of it. So yeah, I think overall it honestly, I know everyone liked the music and this is going to be sacrilege, but
I already know what you're gonna say.
I didn't dislike the music, but I didn't really like the music that much, guys. I'm sorry.
I
Anyway,
loved it.
so
Really?
yeah, I
Listen,
wasn't
I know what he's saying technically. I've listened to the soundtrack probably all the way through a few times actually.
there's
like when I'm
nothing
just
that
driving.
jumped out at me. There was nothing that popped. I didn't think it was bad. It was just like nothing grabbed me,
It's
and I
all
was like,
kind of
"Oh
all the
yeah, this is a
same.
great song." Yeah, they were all very samey, and I was like, "Okay,
Oh,
these
there's
are
definitely a lot of
fine."
them that were meant to just blend in infinitely in the background, and I kind of liked that. And then there was those few that when they came on that you were like, "Oh, this one's on. I love this." Like,
Yes.
yeah,
That's
but
exactly the same
It was
thing. I have to
elevator
say,
music.
Drake.
those few,
But I-
though, like
Yeah.
there are like 3 huge bangers in it, and then
Mhm.
the rest. It's not that they're bad; they're just very much in the same style, and they're supposed to just continually make you feel that same way, like through the whole thing.
Right.
That's something that when we talked about in Oberdin, like the ups and downs of some of the music there, I think this has less like it just stays at one note most of the time and then goes up
Right.
at certain points, but it doesn't really like ever try to drop below. It wants you to like other than when the music disappears or like when something weird is happening with the cues in the menus, that's when I guess like you're getting your up and down. But
Yeah,
So-
I just didn't have any of those like ones pop out at me. Like other than like the main song that like bam 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 like that was like even that for me was just like okay, I recognize that song because it has like a catchy intro to the song, but like nothing popped and I was like, yeah, I would listen to this, unfortunately.
I'm just a
So.
sucker for sax, I guess.
Yeah, I
Saxophone
really
is
like.
good.
I really
but-
like the music and the audio stuff. I thought that was some of the strongest part of the entire game. And what I really liked, kind of like you said, Jake, is that you'd be playing and well, there's 2 things I liked actually. First off, I liked that the music would come from the speakers on the island.
Yeah,
wouldn't
with
just,
the
like,
option you could
completely-
change on and off.
Yeah, it wouldn't just completely permeate like your entire playthrough. And sometimes you'd be like way up high in a mountain or in a building and there's no speakers nearby and so you wouldn't hear anything.
Yeah, that's
but
the, the dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And then the music would keep cycling through like all the tracks you'd unlocked, and then like you'd come down, and then like you'd happen to catch one of the songs, like you said, Jake, like, oh, I really like this one song, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
can I explore around here for just like a couple more minutes? I want to like listen to this and stuff. And so
I get
actually
you in the
like that a
mood to
lot.
like, man, what if this was a perfect island and like we were just hanging out naked on the beach, just slaughtering, citizens and drinking.
Yeah, just casually slaughtering citizens, just with
Seems
some
like that's
groovy
what they do.
music. Yeah,
That's true,
yeah. But so
Yeah.
I thought the audio and just the general aesthetic of the game. I know like I said this already in the beginning, but I thought that was the strongest part of the game for me.
Yeah,
It's just
that's
the
really good
general-
with the colors.
The colors were super vibrant. Some of the character designs were great. I loved how Witness to the End, the religious zealot guy, had a bunch of inscriptions on his skin that he'd like drawn on there with paint that look almost like they would belong to the same alphabet that Henry's demonic possession sigils look like on his skin. I thought that was like a super cool touch.
Close.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, because I think it's Shinji himself who says at some point, what's the difference between the demons and the gods? Like, all we know is that they're from outer space and they have this like psychic power, whatever. And so, like, I thought that was a really cool touch that they added to Witness, that he of all characters would also have a bunch of markings on him.
It is interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I some character designs like the architect, what's her name? Carmelia Silence.
Carmelina. Yeah.
Very
Carmelina,
normal.
yeah. Yeah, she
I'm like
was
you.
like,
I know all the names. I just can't. I never said them out loud before. So I
yes,
don't know.
yeah. Yeah, hers was okay. It wasn't like crazy. But then you had people like Sam, like a red skeleton. It's just
With a horn.
cool looking. Yeah, with a horn and his glasses, and he just happens to be a bartender. Like, I don't know. It's just
But he has to have like daily blood injections to stay
yes.
alive.
Yeah, exactly.
To his bones.
Yeah, to his
Yeah,
bones.
to his bones.
Which is why
I
he's
guess
red,
it'd be
I
like
guess.
marrow.
Yeah.
Bone marrow,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Does that mean
But,
that he becomes less red if he hasn't had anything for a while? He turns into a
But everybody knows why he's like that, right? Or what the story is.
Yeah, because him and his wife were like assassins.
Lydia
and-
killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
But-
their
and
love
he
was so
refused-
strong he came back to life.
He refused to die
Refused to
because of his
die.
love for her, and so he turned into a red skeleton. It makes no sense, but absolutely makes sense once you're at that point in the game. You're like,
Yes.
okay,
It reminded me of a
People
lot of mythology. It kind of a lot of things that when the gods and the worlds. It reminded me a little bit of Greek or Roman mythology. I think there's some
Remind me of
similarities.
Egyptian.
Egyptian.
It
Yeah,
was,
that's
it was
probably
kind of a
Egyptian.
blend of all of those
The old-
Persian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Persian,
I can
yeah.
just mention. Real quick. Things that I'm about to say or would say, you guys have already said, so I'll just skip ahead. One thing that I will comment about the music, I do really like the music. The more especially the main one, Graham, like you were saying. I do agree, though. I knew Graham was going to say that he didn't like it as much because I've listened to the soundtrack a few times now. The best way, if I could identify what the genre is, it's elevator music chill wave. It literally sounds like something that would be in the background, maybe while you're waiting for like getting your teeth pulled or something. It's like just some music in the background.
All the things you're gonna pick.
I don't know, you go to the doctor's office. You go to the doctor's office. You just hear some like weird, it's almost like white noise, but it's like music. I don't know, like elevator music.
Yeah.
So it was a mix of chill wave, which I liked, but a lot of it felt like something you'd play that was just playing randomly somewhere, just for noise.
Right.
Don't
like
play the
a
funk
place.
though. There's actually a lot of funky breakdowns in these.
Oh, there
songs,
is.
and that's the
There's
part
a
that
lot
I would remember too. I'd be like, oh shoot, here's the part where it drops and the bass comes. It has a lot of funk. It's like I would say
I really love it.
it's like
love it.
jazz funk pop. That's what
That's
I would.
vaporwave. That's like I literally looked it
that's
up.
vaporwave. But see, every time I get into vapor, like try to get back into vaporwave, and I listen to a bunch like a playlist, it's just so random. It doesn't make any sense to me. So
Yeah, it's a very
like-
broad genre.
maybe that genre is just so. It's one of those things where 50 different groups have taken it on to themselves and made their own different sections of it. But yeah, in general, I've heard it compared to like city pop, which is a very Japanese thing, like an 80s, 90s Japanese thing, which is also a vaporwave influence, I believe. City pop's pretty cool. But again, even when you look up city pop, you'll get some very like different things. But yeah, I would just say it's jazz, pop, funk with very
Waves.
influence on jazz and pop.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts just to close in there for this segment. What you guys have said and just kind of what I think, how I can relate to you a little bit, Graham. I love the music a bunch. But yeah, a few times it sounded like it was
You're right. Nothing really grabbed you.
nothing,
It's
nothing
just
was
like
sharp. There's nothing
music
sharp.
filler.
Yeah, and sometimes I felt that, and sometimes that helped. It almost covered me, almost like a constant wave. Nothing fancy about waves,
Like a synth wave?
like upon the shore. Synth wave,
Like
yes.
a wave
I was
on
like an ocean wave.
paradise?
It's kind of like well, yeah, that's kind of
Like an
yeah, that's
island
what it is.
wave?
Like island wave. Islands don't wave.
like a wave
But
of
like the
relief
water
when you
take
collected
the-
everything.
Oh yes, it was a sense of determination, accomplishment. Anyways, but like the music, I liked how the music would have got dark and the music would kind of almost just kind of rush over me, and I would look up at the northern lights, which I guess are everywhere.
Oh, the skybox was amazing. We didn't say anything
Mhm.
about
The
that.
skybox
like, I
legitimately
thought
gave
all
me
was
anxiety.
cool.
The skybox
Yeah.
was crazy. It was like, yeah, it was like,
I was just like,
Like see,
are
yeah,
we
seeing the
flying through space
pyramids-
really fast or something?
sorry. Well, we're interrupting Dallin. Go ahead, Dallin.
no, I like hearing what you guys are saying. No, I just, and this is my last thing, then we can go to the next person. But like, I almost wish I could sit there, and when they talk about the drinks, I wish I could like sit there and enjoy what a day in paradise would be like.
Yep.
That's it.
His laundry's falling out the window.
I think so.
Goodbye, Graham Pants.
His, his laundry's
Bye,
gone.
Gone with the wind.
But yeah, no,
Yeah,
I mean, I
Skybox
like
was
the
nice.
music.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I liked, but you guys already
I
said
don't-
it.
I really liked how when you went to the the desolation cell where they were holding
Mm.
Henry,
Yeah.
it got
Oh, yeah,
so
it got really weird.
quiet. Yeah.
Oh, that
It
too.
got-
Yeah.
the
own
music was gone.
Atmosphere.
Yeah, it just sounded so different.
Lightning and
Yeah. There's lightning. It's all red.
Mhm.
It's like
But
empty.
I'm talking specifically about the sound. Just like you're
Ah.
leaving the island, and it just feel like orally, as in your ears, feels totally different.
I almost forgot to mention. Did you guys love walking on the crystal skulls?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Sound that it made.
That
Yeah.
was a good sound.
Now that I'm getting into sound design and Foley work,
10
like
out of 10
there's so
sound.
many points like that. Yeah, just. Ooh. And then the winding thing, that winding thing in the sky, that was a cool sound too.
Reality
Yeah, the
folding
sounds
drive.
were crazy
Oh.
good in general.
Yeah, that was good sound
Yeah.
design.
Hmm.
I think there was something I was wanting to say. about
Well,
the-
maybe I'll come back when we get to the next part. We just get what's the
We've
next
only-
part? We're
I-
We've only
The
got
next-
10
wanna
minutes
hear
left.
about-
The next part
the
is your
end.
closing thoughts, Dallin.
we're not talking about the trials.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I want to
That's
hear
the
what everyone thought
closing.
about
It's
the
the end of the
trials.
game. It's the end of your thoughts. Tell me, Dallin.
You want me to start?
Yes.
go for it.
So, without knowing about the corridors, what did you even think happened?
Yeah,
Tell me,
that's what I'm
Dallin.
curious to know.
Yeah.
Ready.
Guys, I really liked
Alan's
this game.
demeanor completely changes.
It's almost like I watch a movie and I'm really good into something, and then I learn that I watched the wrong one and I've already become invested in it.
We
So
make jokes
I-
about
I
this kind of thing, but for totally different reasons. Coming into the game club conversation, being like, "Yeah, so anyways, I played this other game." It's like, oh, uh-oh. But go on, Dallin.
I was praying. Hoping that like you guys missed what I missed. So early in the game, I found the grounds to break it, ground to break. But it said it was too hard to break, and I was like, I wonder what this really is. I wonder if
Oh.
like they dug
Wow, you
dirt up.
found it
had
before
the
you
same
found the
pink
thing.
stuff. Yeah, it has the pink stuff on it, like
Mhm,
next to it. The cards. I thought there was something like that. And then when you find the chest, it's like, oh, these gauntlets. I thought they were meant to open the seals. I thought they were meant something was used there that Sam or somebody used something for that. I was like, I wonder when this is gonna come up. And then when I look at the computer, there was a blank box, and I remember being like, I wonder if there's like another person that will come up when the trial happens. I'm like, I was so interested because like I used after like 12 hours in, had the searching thing, and I'm like, I 100% in this thing. I maxed out everything. I have all my notes on like writing down everything. I feel like there's some continuity errors, by the way, but I don't know if we have time for that, unfortunately. But like the flesh and like the god told me that he liked the girl, but so I thought the guy cut his flesh off anyway. Anyway, those things I had to be like, what? Because at the end of the game, once I accuse people, and then I hate how like loved as I'm making all these relationships with people, and all of a sudden it's like
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then
I
it
will
has a
say-
heart. I'm like, is that the heart that represents the relationship I just made with them? I just maxed out on them like an hour or so ago. Like I had no idea.
So
And
who
like
all
when
did
I was,
you kill then?
who did I kill?
Yeah, who was guilty in your game?
Everybody died but Henry, Dr. Doom Jazz, and I did not know that Yuri, the ring in his hand. I'm like, okay, duh. But the Crimson Acid, I thought that with her fur actually there, just a few feet away from where he got his head butted in, I thought she actually killed him because I thought it was like
Mm.
I will say I'm
She
with you
was
on that one. That's the one time I save scummed because I wasn't sure what the game wanted there because she had a perfect motive because there was a note that said that he was going to tell on her. And she used to be an assassin, or she used to also be a killer.
But he
So-
had it because he was obsessed with her, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
yeah,
why.
he was just obsessed. And then he had other people's jewelry. So when I heard that he had Yuri's ring, I'm like, okay, yeah, he has the Marshalls thing. But like, so once I realized that, after I beat so she also died. Those are the only people that lived was Henry, Dr. Doom Jazz, and the ghost, who's technically not alive. So I was like, dang, once I won, it's like you see the blood everywhere, and I'm like, man, this really isn't paradise. Like the ending was horrible. And then all of a sudden it plays a track that's super disturbing at the end. And I'm like, I got the wrong one. And I
Is
went to the car.
I think.
I think so. It doesn't. I was gonna
Yeah.
check that up, but yeah, it just played creepy music. I'm like, I did the wrong thing, so I looked it up. There's this freaking kid with a pyramid on his face, and I'm like, what the heck is this?
Who's
And then
that?
so then I watched the video. Is like he's the actual killer, and I'm like,
Dallon's like,
the-
I
they're
played
looking
this
for
whole game about trying to find the
20
killer.
hours.
I finished, and I
Yes.
didn't even see him one time.
yeah, I played for 20 hours, and I did 3 hours of research afterwards that I beat it. 3 hours. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, he was in a secret apartment in the mountain." And I'm like, "I looked everywhere. I have the place memorized." She's like, "Oh yeah, it was the secret area where it broke the dirt in." And I'm like, I completely forgot. I found that in the beginning of the game. I had no idea.
Oh
And
man, dude.
that's when I was bummed. I was bummed, and like there's some people that I accused. I wish I could talk more about it, but we're running low on time. Like I got most of them correct on the people accused. They did a few tricky ones, so I felt like, gosh dang it, game, because I accused the right person, but it didn't count both of them. Stupid. But Dial Gaddlegate, whatever his name is, like I have everything
I think
collected.
that's the name. Dial
Kyle
Battlegate.
Battlegate.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
don't know. But yeah, like he ended up going through these portals, and I'm like, portals? Like I remember blood, but like maybe it was the demon's blood because we don't have his blood recorded. Like they said, like his claws had the people's blood on it. I'm like, I found reasons, I had answers for it, and I wrote them down. And like he went through a portal, and that whole thing about another child and child records, and like he
Mhm.
was the actual killer because I thought the demon was the actual killer, but I didn't feel good about it because I'm like, everything has been tricky, but this one. So then
Mm.
I felt like, okay, I played this whole game and there was this literal killer, the real Paradise Killer. I never found him. So like,
Did you even play the
Uh,
game at that point then, Dallon? If you didn't find the Paradise Killer in Paradise Killer,
Hey, you didn't get the true ending.
technically I might be correct though, because there was blood on the actual killer demon. There was claws on his blood, and they didn't say
Yeah,
that
but-
it was manually put on it.
No,
They didn't
yeah,
say that-
but it says a few times that I think that the claws were definitely not used, and the very
Right.
sharp knife was used.
But they were demon claws, so
Yeah,
they're
but when
sharper than
information is given to you from like the computer or like Lady Lovedyes says it, you can almost 100% sure say that that's what's going on. Like if
Yeah.
she
She
says,
said there was blood on the
because
from
again,
the
you're,
people.
you're not making the assumptions or the
The
decision.
game's making
Lady
it for
Love
you.
the
Dies
game's
is
the game's telling you.
No, but
yeah.
that's what it said. That's what I remembered. It said
So-
specifically that it was from they had the blood of the people, and then there was like the knife under the
He-
whole thing. It said like it
he
was
gets-
washed away, but what blood could have been there. So I just got goofed a few times.
Yeah, he gets some damage in because Witness put the demon in there to scare the Syndicate Council into
Yep.
starting to revive the gods. But he wasn't the one that ended up slaughtering everyone. I'm sure he like swiped at a few people and like, you know, hit them
He
pretty
had to
hard.
swipe at
but-
Eddie.
I don't
he had
know,
to swipe
man.
at-
That demon was shot right in the head. I'm sure they murdered him right away.
Monosaurad or whatever got him like immediately.
yeah.
So how was the blood put on his claws then?
Also, we don't even know if the demon was aggressive. He could have just been like, "Oh, what am I doing here?" And then they would have just shot him anyway.
That's what I kind of was thinking,
Well-
but they didn't explain how there was blood on the claws.
But they just
think
put
there'd be
blood
blood
on the claws. It's not a big logical leap.
It's just like how would there be if he didn't do it?
Arterial
Well,
spray.
I think he did swipe at something.
Arterial spray. Like
I
if
think he
this,
did
if
swipe
this
at
guy is
them,
slitting throats and stuff, there's gonna be blood everywhere, as there was in the room. There's blood everywhere. It was like a
Yeah, I
it
guess
was like a
so.
Quentin Tarantino
Claws?
movie.
It's specifically on his claws.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Okay, we're getting
I'm not
lost in the weeds. Final thoughts, Dan.
yeah. Anyway, there's a lot more I could say about it because there's other details from things that I feel like goofed me. But the main thing, like, it was fine. But right at the end, how that
Yeah,
whole
you missed
thing
out
was
on the
handled-
whole thing.
I missed out on the whole
story.
point of the game. Like,
Yeah, one
I
of
felt
the
like
most one of the most interesting and climactic parts of the game, I think, in my opinion.
so I was hoping one person like didn't put together that metal electric knife goes and digs like a shovel. Like I had no idea.
Yeah,
And I
so
got it.
so I'll go next. I did find that part like, I don't know, 30% of the way through, and I was like, oh, I'm really interested to see what's in here, and I didn't get the thing to open it until like way later. But once I got it, I was like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going next, because I was really interested to see what was there. And I'm glad it paid off. It was quite interesting. I don't know, my overall thoughts aren't really too different from what I've been saying. There's not really any aspect. I was gonna say I don't think it's necessarily a bad game, but that's not exactly truthful. I'm not really keen on the game. There's a very few amount of things that I did like. I will say this. I'm really glad that Jake picked it, and I'm glad that I played it, but I didn't like it, and I don't think I think it was poorly executed in lots of ways, and it wasn't what they advertised it to be. Like, it seemed like it was supposed to be a mystery. It's really a visual novel. They should really just be like saying this is a visual novel with a really mediocre collectathon thrown in there. So, like, they really should be displaying it more as that than what it really is, or closer to what it really is. But I will say, I really liked the island, and I thought it was really interesting. If the developers, this is probably never going to happen, but if the developers took the island and the interest of just like exploring some interesting places on the island, if they stripped out the characters and the story and the collectathon and just like focused on making an interesting island with interesting places to go and maybe even solving a mystery through that, like a la like Myst and Riven, even if it wasn't even a mystery, even if it was just like, here's a cool and interesting island with like interesting things to do and check out, and like there's like an ending that you have to find on the island by like going to various places and like there's no like mystery, it's just like a puzzle island. It's kind of like The Witness. I've never played The Witness, but that's generally my understanding of it, is there's puzzles everywhere and you get to an end. But like that would be really interesting to me, because that was kind of the highlight of my enjoyment of the game, was that. And so if they made another game that was focused on that, I think it would be actually really good. I would be more interested. But I mean, clearly I'm the minority, which is, I think, is totally fine. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it, because, you know, it really didn't hit a lot of good notes for me, but I don't think that's necessarily wrong. There'll be games that we play all the time.
Well, yeah, you're definitely not. You're allowed to not like the game, of course. So
Right.
you didn't have to. I don't think you had to preface everything with as
Sure.
much as you did. Like,
Sure.
we're just here to give your opinion now.
Yeah.
And
So
I did not think the game was gonna hit for everybody. I was surprised when we were just a few hours in, and even George was like, "Yeah, I'm liking it," because I don't know what happened, but I've just flip flopped on what types of games that I want to play now, and it's just weird. I'm like, I never like a year ago even, I just would have been like, I would have looked at this game and been like, that looks cool, but I know that it's gonna suck and I'm never gonna play it.
you gotta start buying
For
more
all-
visual novels. That's what it sounds like.
Sounds like it.
Apparently,
Do I have some visual novels for you, friend?
Oh no. Oh
I'm
no.
curious to see what people would think of Disco Elysium. I haven't played it
I,
yet, but
that's one that's been coming up that I wish that I could get
I'm
into. I need to
very,
do that.
very curious to hear what Graham would think of it.
I have
Yeah,
seen
that
I've
one's
seen
super in depth
I've
though.
seen it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
Haven't
much
even
about it,
heard
but
of
I've
it.
seen a lot about like around it at least.
Because I think there's a ton of inconsequential dialogue in it.
I hate it. I hate
But it's
it.
like
He hates it
He
already.
already-
masterfully
Thank you, I hate
crafted
it.
inconsequential
Um,
dialogue.
Yeah, like when I look at something like Dark Souls, there's so much like random scattered information, but it all like ties directly to things. So like when you're like reading even item descriptions, it's like a lot of it makes like sense and it ties together and it's not like an exorbitant amount of information just for the sake of throwing out dialogue and for world building reasons. I just think I freaking hate it, man. It's just a waste of time.
Well, I did not feel like it was a waste of time, but I did feel like the trial to me was the worst part. I mean, obviously, I wanted to see the conclusion, but that's where the part where I was talking about how the game's not really like much of an actual game. How you're just going through the motions, and as you find the stuff, it just plays out how it's supposed to. That's why when I got to the trial, and specifically the part that Dallin was talking about, when you go and you're supposed to either suspect Yuri or Crimson Acid, I didn't want to suspect Crimson Acid, and actually only had I had way more evidence. Like that's the part where I didn't know what the game wanted me to do, because the game beforehand has not, like, it's been very clear. It's like, okay, you're suspecting the person that's like first up. If it's not Henry though, but often it would put Henry first in the trial thing, and you're like, obviously it's not. So then you would go one over, and it'd be the next person with the most um
Evidence against
checked
Evidence.
evidence on their list.
Yeah.
So when it got to that point, I was like, what? I don't I don't think Crimson Acid did it, but the game is telling me that I should choose her. And I was like, I know it's obviously Yuri. So I went with what I thought the game was wanting me to do.
Mm.
And I wish that I hadn't, because it was wrong. I found out it was wrong like almost immediately. I was like, by what she said and how it played out. I was like,
it was horrible.
so I immediately just like after 60 seconds literally just escaped out of the game, alt F4 out of the game, and reloaded, and was like, okay, I need to say Yuri here. So that part really ticked me off. So I wish that it would have just, if you had everything unlocked, the trial just would have played out and you just watch it. I think that would have been much better.
Right.
Yeah.
But
You could have skipped all the repetitive
But
dialogue too in it.
yeah, but yeah,
that's
there
the
was a
point of the
lot.
game. Lots of dialogue.
But that doesn't
Judge saying the same thing over and over.
because of the way that they made the game, though. They want you to think that maybe you didn't get all the information, so you just have to go on what you got. And so that's the only part where maybe your gut feeling comes in. If you didn't get all the evidence, maybe it would be a lot harder. Like if people just noped out like 70% of the way through and didn't get some things, that they would just make their assumptions based on what they want. But again, the game is also telling you have the freedom to do whatever you want at the trial. So literally you could have been like, I'm saving my friends. I know they were involved. Like Sam and Lydia were involved, right? So what you're supposed to do as the investigator is you're supposed to execute them.
You're supposed to get the truth,
But
not some facts.
That's why
Yeah.
I thought the last one was that last one where it was empty person I didn't find. I thought that was an option to just say like there's nobody to claim for it. I thought it was like accused like
Oh.
there's no one that did this. That's why I thought that was. I was like,
Okay,
oh
well,
cool,
that wouldn't
like,
make
I
any
can
sense at
save
all,
people.
so-
Well,
but
like,
anyway.
no, it'd be like it's like
But you still can save people by not putting them
killing
in the
Henry.
suspect. Yeah, by just using the scapegoat.
or
But yeah,
others.
I hated the trial for those reasons, and also because you have to kill Lydia and Sam if you do it the proper way. And that's one thing that if I was going to go back and play it again and see how it turned out, I would not do that. I would just I would probably not kill anybody except for like 3 people. If you could
All
do
the
it that way,
annoying ones.
but
All the
yeah,
annoying
I
ones.
already know.
Hi, Yuri.
I mean, they
Yeah.
all did terrible things. I mean, Lydia and Sam.
Right, if they're all
didn't-
equally terrible, then just kill the annoying terrible ones.
Yeah,
Well, that's why the game
Exactly.
really tells you that you're the judge now. It's like whatever you say goes. Like pretty much you were not just the law, you were the truth. Like that was
Yes.
crazy at the end where you could arrest them, kill them, or just say farewell. It was crazy.
yeah. So my closing thoughts on that. The ending was okay, and I just wish the trial would have been a little bit better. But I do agree that they kind of mislabeled the game to me. At least okay, maybe it's just my fault for the way I perceived how the game was going to be, but it wasn't that, and that's fine because I still liked it. But because of that, I wish they would have played more on, maybe instead of gathering the evidence the way that you did and just turning it into collectathon, what if you actually played the relationships more? That would be way more interesting to me, because I kind of tried to, and I did a little bit, and actually you can romance 2 of the options. If you didn't know, you can sleep with
Doom
the
Jazz?
obvious ones, Dr. Doom Jazz and Crimson Acid. And I
Oh.
did do that. One of them I did on accident. I thought I was just going to be joking, because like to the whole time up to that, you guys are joking with each other, and then it actually happened. It doesn't show anything, of course. It just like fades to black. But yeah, and so I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, I loved the talking to people. I loved the comedy. I loved the world building. I just wish that you would have had to do more with the characters rather than just go through the motions of just talking to them, because that was my favorite part, but I just wanted more of it because the exploration was kind of ruined from the other things that we already talked about. So it was not a perfect game, just like it was not a perfect island by far, but I
Sure.
am definitely scratching the surface of some weird new thing I'm getting into, and this is a perfect Oberdin, and this are perfect examples of how that I can be drawn into it, because they're not perfect games, and they're not games that I would have played in the past, but they've drawn me in for some odd reason. And I think it's the world again, that about Oberdin too. I went on and on and on after our podcast with Graham about all the things about the world that I was like telling him all these conspiracy theories I had and stuff. Just like my brain goes crazy for that stuff. So like Dallin, but a different, the same but different.
The
That's
same,
me.
but
So
different.
anyway, it was fun.
All right.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Gareth, George.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a whole lot. Yes, there were some issues with the exploration, particularly like the ridiculous number of things to pick up, and I assumed that there wasn't anything I needed to go get like in all the balconies in the apartment buildings. It was very handy to be able to see all the like open questions that the Starlight computer still had, and so as soon as I had cleared all the boxes that were there, it's like, okay, I found everything actually important. I'll go do the trial now. So
That was handy.
I just like, no, I don't need to collect everything. That's gonna take forever. I'll admit I did look and see if there was like a no clip cheat so you could just fly and not have to deal with the
The platforming.
Yeah.
platforming to get up onto the tops of apartment buildings where there were things you could see with meditate, and that no one's bothered to do that. So I just didn't bother to go get everything, all the little bits and pieces. I found all the
perfectly
clues I needed
reasonable.
to. I think it would be a better game if you walked a little faster and jumped a little further.
Thank goodness for the freaking running toggle.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
sprint,
Yeah.
and the sprint's pretty fast.
You got it.
Yeah, but even a little faster and a little jumping a little higher, just because
Mhm.
like I don't want to go back and forth up the stairs
Yeah.
for the 5th time.
Yeah, the
essentially
stairs in the
Genji. You're
apartments
Genji
were
from
like the worst
Overwatch.
part. Yeah.
You're Genji
but
from
the-
Overwatch. You jump and dash.
But I enjoyed the story, both like the backstory of this weird syndicate with like these gods and things. I still don't fully understand it, but then I kind of liked how the characters were just unhappy and how they were coming up with all these elaborate plans to solve their issues by killing everyone, which is clearly not going to solve anything. But yeah, and the presentation was really good, I thought. So I enjoyed it. I don't know that I'd play it through it again because there'd be no point, but
Okay.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
agree.
And George.
Wouldn't play it again.
Yeah,
didn't-
I don't think
yeah.
I'd play it again either. But I did enjoy the experience.
I wouldn't play it
that I
again
had.
either, guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
If-
don't say.
I have like I have like 2 or 3 sentences afterwards
for it.
because I
Go
talked about
for
the
it.
trial. Oh, okay, sure. I'll just do it then real quick. So I only talked about the trial, but like my closing actual remarks, similar to what you guys said.
Wait a
I
second.
really liked.
You didn't do that already?
You already had
No,
your
we
closing
talked about
remarks.
the trial. We talked about the trial, and then.
But that was part of your
and then-
closing remarks, I thought.
I didn't say what I overall felt about the game at the end, though.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
You
I'll
can
make
go
it
for it
quick.
if you
Go
want.
ahead, Dell.
I liked the
Yeah,
game. I liked the game a lot. Would I replay it? It'd be kind of hard. I kind of did a little bit for music. But I out of this game and the other games that were recorded on the channel, and even ones we didn't get recorded on the channel, this game maybe was the number one game that I looked forward to the most playing. Actually, out of the 4, that or some just ones we've played in the past in general, it was definitely up there. Would I play it again? I guess maybe. Do I like this genre a little bit more after we've now had 2 kind of Obra Dinn-ish and then this-ish? Maybe I would play it. It's kind of put a better taste for me. But the game did have a lot of problems. But and the ending felt flat. But overall, I do like this game, and I think it's a fun one to experience.
Nice.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, for the trial and just my final thoughts, I do something happened to me similar to what happened to Jake, except it wasn't for the KHX death, but it was for the 4th seal. Like that was one of the things you had to figure out. And I also Alt F4'd because I was like, oh, I got the wrong person, and I didn't like that I hesitate comparing this to Obra Dinn, but I mean it's kind of the same mystery thing.
Yeah.
Obra Dinn did a great job at right from the get-go training you to use your intuition and kind of deductive reasoning with the first death. With one of the very first deaths. But this game, it didn't do that at all. And then
No.
it gets to the trial, and then you're supposed to you deduct from what you've learned.
That
all
was
this
one of my
stuff.
biggest problems with the game. It was like not a mystery
yeah, that's
thing. It
what
was
I-
a light novel, and all of a sudden it's like now solve the mystery. It's like
Yes.
what?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I wish it just would have played out like
yeah,
this
like it
and
should have
then-
just played
based on
out
what you
like the whole
found.
game had been.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I should have Alt F4'd. I should have quit a few times in that trial. but I
Well,
kept
with
going.
the gates, the 4 gates or whatever, there was a few of them that were interchangeable. I think it didn't matter which ones you got.
So
It would
I
have
was
the same
actually
result.
I was curious right after I beat it, and I Googled to see what the
Same.
true ending was. And I was thankful
Yeah.
that with my Alt F4ing of the 4th seal, I mean, I'm going off of what a YouTube video says, so it might not even actually be the true ending. But this YouTube video said it was. And their accusations line up with what I did. But yeah, as far as like my overall thoughts in the game, I'm kind of torn because there's a lot of things I dislike about the game, namely the controls. It was kind of cumbersome to go back and forth. The map I didn't like, the fast travel I didn't like. I didn't like how much collecting there was of things, especially of like artifacts. I maybe should have done more like you did, Jake, and read them more, but I had the misconception that they were going to provide more information on the case, not so much just
No, it's not the
random.
it's not the
lore.
point of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Even the key items that you get don't they are for something, but they don't initially uncover anything. Like so,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
you're
not
not like
evidence-based.
fighting a piece of paper. There was these recordings that
Mhm.
those were confusing too. There was some weird
Yeah.
tape recordings you could get that was like somebody knew what was going on, but it was just it was just to like no, okay, even the citizens, like there were some citizens that knew what was going on. Like
Yeah.
they had even been there so long that they were like, okay, like we know there's corruption and things are about to hit the fan. That I think that's what they were there for. But they seemed like they were special for some reason. But I
Yeah.
think they were just artifacts, basically.
Yeah, so those were namely the things I did not like or enjoy. However, I did like the interactions with the characters and kind of their views. I just found it kind of funny how cynical everyone became and just kind of fed up and done with the syndicate. And like one of the very last things that you see in the game is those people in the 25th Island sequence in the bar. They're talking, and one of them poses a question like, "Was Paradise worth saving?" And immediately, as I read that in my mind, I was like, "No, this is not a worthy thing, a thing worth saving, because everyone hates it. They become worse off by becoming immortal. Like it kind of got me thinking, kind of philosophically, like, what would I do if I was granted immortality, but just like how I am right now, just with my
Yeah.
pettiness sometimes and my, and just like I liked hearing that a lot about
Yeah,
the
like
characters.
Sam and Lydia just wanted to be immortal again
Gone.
and go back
Yeah,
to
they just
Earth.
exactly.
They wanted to go back to
Earth.
Earth and live until they died.
Yeah,
and doing what they love. They
exactly.
so
And so I that's the aspect that I really liked. And so for anyone that is wondering whether they should play this or not, I would recommend it for the character interactions, but not if they're looking for some sort of like great gameplay or something like that. And again, I don't want to compare this to Obra Dinn, but I kind of have to because it's a mystery type game. Um, and I came into it expecting that, and when it wasn't that, I was able to adapt my expectations a little bit more, and so that's why I got some enjoyment out of the actual character conversations and character interactions. So that's the strongest part, and I love the vibe. I just absolutely love the aesthetic of the game, the kind of Egyptian god worshiping thing they were doing, like everything, like their whole monetary system was based around blood, and you unlock things with blood vials. People's own personal blood code was like really important, specific things, like the general aesthetic was just awesome. And so you know I'm glad I got this in a game format, and but I almost wonder if there's a better way to deliver this exact story to me
Yeah, I mean,
outside of
it's
Multiplayer, baby.
Visual novel.
yeah, it's kind of an art piece. Like
Yeah.
it's something
Yeah.
you would just look at and like read about. I don't know.
A museum.
This belongs in a museum.
So yeah, so that's, I guess that's, that wraps up
It would be a
my
really
closing.
cool graphic novel, like an
It would.
actual
It would be a better.
in-person graphic novel.
I
Like
would-
I would read The Adventures of Lady Love Dies and Her Weird Friends, and I would yeah. You can make graphic novels of this stuff. I would buy it.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
have much more enjoyed it if it was a straight visual novel than how it was presented. But honestly, I think comparing it to Obra Dinn is like apples to oranges. I think
Yeah, it
they are
really
about
is.
solving
Yeah.
a murder to a degree, but like they're nothing even remotely the same.
I
So,
only compare them in the sense that they're of how different they are from other games that I've played.
true.
And again, that's why I picked it. And I knew that they were going to be apples and oranges. I knew that going into it. I was like, well, nothing's been compared to Obra Dinn, and
Right.
it's just a form of a game that I have not. It is closer down that road of things that I have not experienced.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
That's the only reason I compare them. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think initially it was tempting to make the comparison, but it's quite clear once you play, it's like, oh, this is nothing
different.
like
Very
that.
different.
Yeah, very different.
yeah,
But I am legitimately, as I said before, I'm legitimately glad that Jake picked it. I think it was worth the experience of playing through it, and I think we had a good
100%.
yeah, I think we had a
100%.
good conversation about it too. We had a lot of like really varying opinions. Like Obra Dinn was like, everyone was like, it's the best.
Yeah.
Obra Dinn is amazing. But like this game was just like, I like this and this. It was really varied. So I think it was good. I think it was a worthwhile game and conversation. So
Huh.
that
I
being
almost wish we had more time to talk about continuity problems.
we
But
can
for
have all the
another
conversations
time.
about continuity
Yeah,
you
for
want
another
after,
day.
no problem.
Yeah.
We don't have to stop
Exactly.
here,
There was
Next
broken
month.
lore a few times.
Next month, I want to hear what you've picked, Graham, for the Game Club game of the month.
yeah, we need to get onto that.
After
Nico
I
much,
can't know what it is. I take my headphones off.
after much deliberating, I have finally decided I've been thinking for months because I am filled with indecision, but I finally have decided, and the game that we will be playing, I guess this month or next month, will be Nox.
Oh, snap.
I finally
did it.
decided. So Nox is a action RPG, which is generally, that genre generally now is thought of like a top-down or at least like a slightly angled camera, and it's fixed.
Isometric.
Isometric camera, yeah.
Is that what they call it?
That's what they
Yes.
call it. Yeah, that's the technical term. So it's an isometric camera, so it's a little bit slanted above. It's very similar. It's most similar to games like Diablo in the way that it's played and in the way that the game kind of runs, but the content itself is very different from Diablo. Diablo is like a loot-driven game, and this game is more like a story/combat-driven game. And Diablo definitely has story, but it's, Nox is much more about the combat. A big portion of the game is also the PvP, so I hope we can do some of that PvP in the coming month. If maybe if we don't have everyone, maybe we can even record it. If we get everyone together, we can put out like a special PvP event. But that is a big portion of it is the multiplayer. So I absolutely love Nox.
It's built into 3 chapters of 3 different play styles. I'll probably play through all of them. You guys will only have to play through one because that should be like the length of it, or depending how much time you have. But I'm very excited. So hopefully look forward to that. So I encourage everyone too, if you're interested in playing Nox, honestly I think it's a very good game. So, and I think
Very
it's aged
cheap.
really
You can
well.
get it pretty cheap on GOG.
Yeah. So check it
if
out.
anybody wants to pick it up.
To our listeners.
To our
those out
listeners,
there.
yeah. If anyone wants to come and join the conversation, we do reach out on social media and stuff. We would love to have you included. So, all right, everyone. Thank you very much. We will see you next month, and everyone else, have a good one.
See you in the perfect 25.
Take
See
care,
ya.
guys. Yep.